Hey Froggy friends, Kirostyle here. Welcome to Umineko When They Cry Answer Arc. Thank you so much for coming by today. Now, if you're new here or you're not familiar with Umineko, Umineko is a visual novel. It is about, well, it is 8 episodes long, and it's a murder mystery with fantasy elements. Now, it's a really long visual novel, and in fact, it's so long that it's basically like, I think it's like just under 200 hours. Maybe it's like around 170 hours if you were to like read it all out loud. So we just finished Umineko the question arcs in a previous video or a previous stream, and now we're starting the answers arc. So because Umineko is made up of 8 episodes, the first 4 episodes are what they call the question arcs, and then episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 are the answer arcs because they answer a lot of the mysteries that were proposed in the first half of the game. So even though they're sold as separate games, they're not. I wouldn't say the second game is standalone. You need to know what happens in the first game to understand what's going on here. So if you stumbled across this video on YouTube and you're new here, please go check out Umineko When They Cry Questions Arc Episode 1. So because this is the first episode of the Answers arc, this is episode 5, which is End of the Golden Witch. In the Japanese version, instead of calling it the Answers arc, they call it Umineko no Naku Koro ni Chiru, and then they made a PS3 port of it called Nocturne of Truth and Illusions. So I'm playing the Steam version of the game, but the Steam version of the game uses the pachinko art, which was used for some Umineko pachinko games. I've used a mod to make it so that we play it with the PS3 sprites, because the PS3 sprites just look better, like definitively better. I still have this up, but I'll show you a quick preview. So there's like the original art of the very original visual novel done by the author. There's the PS3 art, and then there's the pachinko art, which is also used on Steam, which is used by the publishing company MangaGamer. So I'm pretty sure I'm not of the only one who thinks that the PS3 art is the superior artwork. So that's why I've used a mod to make it the PS3 artwork, because I think it just looks better. I think it conveys the characters so much better. So if you get this game too and you're wondering why it looks different, that's why. The mod is called 7th Mod, but it's pretty easy to install. So if you are a person that only knows Umineko through the anime actually only, it's like 25 or 26 episodes long, but it only covers episodes 1 to 4 of the visual novel. So they never actually cover the second half of the visual novel. So if you've watched the anime, or let's say if you want to start watching over here and you have no experience with Umineko, but you don't want to go through the entire questions arc, the anime is a good way to kind of breeze through that quicker. The manga covers all 8 episodes, but I think the manga is a good stopping point between the two. You get the artwork, but you also get the story and the writing. But I think you get everything with the full visual novel. At least that's my opinion. So, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for coming by. Hey, Kieran, Psycho Reaper, Hakaze, Yule. Good to see you. I really appreciate you coming by. So, just as a little quick recap, at the end of episode 4, Badler challenged Beatrice and kind of solved all her mysteries, but in a kind of roundabout, vague sort of way. And so she took a lot of damage during that battle, and basically she's like about to, well, it's kind of implied that she's like, you know, on her last legs. But then she proposes to Badler one last challenge, and she gives him a riddle that he's supposed to solve. And then he swears that he's going to solve her riddle and solve the rest of the riddles of her mystery game, so he can go home to Ange. So that's kind of where we're picking up here, right after Badler's last battle with Beatrice, where Badler turned out victorious. But according to Lambda, Delta, and Bert and Castell, Beatrice still has a lot of moves that she could have used, but she chose not to. And she could have overturned a lot of Badler's arguments, but she chose not to. So we're going to find out a little bit more about why, and hopefully start uncovering some of the mysteries. But even though this is called the Answers arc, it does follow the same general format as the first couple games, although with a lot of extra twists and new characters. And even though it's called Answer Arcs, they don't really directly answer your questions. It's more like they give you more information for you to piece it together yourself as we go. So, I think we're ready to get going. And thank you, my weekend has been going really great. It's been nice and relaxing. I hope you guys have been having a great day too. Hope you haven't been April Fooled too many times today. Okay, let's start. Umineko no Naku Koro ni Chiru. So, episode 5, End of the Golden Witch. This story is very obviously fictional and fantastic in nature. Any resemblance to existing individuals, organizations, locations, or incidents is entirely coincidental. You idiot! Isn't it obvious? It'll be fun to kill her and see her face twist in pain. Why else? Look, look. Don't turn your eyes away. Look at it. Look, look, look. It's magic. It's furniture, no matter how much you try to deny me and magic. Look, 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 look. Sorry, Battler. It was pretty fun. Sure, I just did what teacher told me, but look how great it turned out. Apparently, if you start out all hostile and needlessly brutal, then turn incompetent and soft at just the right moment, you could spark a huge bump on your affection meter, right? So those were flashbacks from the first couple episodes. And this patch also comes with the PS3 voices, so there are voiceovers for this patch, but they're all in Japanese, which is why I've turned them off so I can just read them instead. Because there's no English dub. That lonely tone was the desolate sound of the wind blowing by. The glittering rose petals on these bushes were all golden. You wanted the Kiro dub anyways? Thank you. The cloud of gold butterflies that had once danced through this golden rose garden like fluttering rose petals was no longer anywhere to be seen. The master of the Golden Land is the Golden Witch, Beatrice. She might be called inhumane and cruel, arrogant and outrageous, or perhaps naive and simple. That laugh of hers, which lost its grace more and more the longer continued, could no longer be heard. The Golden Witch Beatrice sat like a doll, resting in a deck chair adorned as beautifully as the golden rose garden itself. She wasn't relaxing there. Her eyes were empty. She didn't respond to any questions. Even so, she was not permitted to sleep. Beatrice sat like a doll. Her hair was down and Virgilia was carefully tending to it with a comb. The usual Bito would surely have spent this time complaining about this and that, regarding her hairstyle. However, she made no response, showed no reaction. So it really only looked like Virgilia was combing the golden hair of a large doll. There was a table alongside them. On it sat a chessboard along with a jumble of black and white pieces locked in a closely fought battle. However, the setup looked somehow different from normal chess. Maybe the game was similar, though not identical. And on the other side, sitting back in his chair as he contemplated his next move, was a young man. No, perhaps it wasn't his next move he contemplated. Every once in a while he would change the positions of the pieces, reconsidering the situation after every change. Maybe he was reconstructing previous games, trying to discover the thought process behind the moves that had been made. In the past, Kinzo, the Ushimiya family head, once said that learning chessboard arrangements was like taking a journey through the thoughts of the old masters. Ushimiya Battler was on a journey. A search for the thought process that had led the Golden Witch to create this arrangement and make these moves. Battler took a black piece that should have been moved forward and returned it to its original place, sighing deeply. Battler's pieces were white. However, on this chessboard, the black encampment was on Battler's side. He was reconstructing that arrangement, trying to play Bito's role. The more I do this, the less I understand your moves. Even Battler didn't expect that Bito would respond to that statement, or rather he was pretending to talk to himself, thinking there might be some chance of her responding. Bito's eyes reflected nothing, and her mouth told nothing. After begging him to kill her, the Golden Witch had become a corpse that had given up on life. She wasn't sleeping. She couldn't step down from this game and was therefore forbidden sleep. So those words must have reached her ears. However, they probably hadn't reached her heart. The Golden Witch could not sneer at Balor's moves, nor would she praise them or belittle them. By now, Beatrice was nothing more than a living doll. Even so, she would glance at him every once in a while. It would be an empty glance, but a glance nonetheless. Sometimes she would seem to make some sort of gesture, or even move her lips. However, her movements never managed to communicate anything to Badler. How did you decide on this move in this situation? I don't get it at all. I don't understand your moves. Ito, Badler-kun is talking to you. Say something. Giggle or guffaw or something. Even use that shrill laugh of yours if you want. You believe it? That shrill laugh of Bito's will never be heard again. However, even if she couldn't answer, his voice surely reached her. That was what Badler believed as he said those words. So he said it again. How did you decide on this move in this situation? I don't get it at all. I don't understand your moves. So, you don't understand what this child is thinking. Virgilia answered in her disciple's stead. Up to this point, she had done her best to avoid speaking for Bito. After all, there was a chance that Bito would respond in some way, and Virgilia didn't want to be the one to steal that chance. So Badler was going to have to bear with the silence. Until Bito herself answered. Virgilia could no longer bear to watch Badler like this. Besides, Badler also wanted to hear what Virgilia had to say. He believed the conversation would reach Bito's heart. Yep. I don't have a clue. The more I try standing in Bito's shoes and moving the pieces like this, the less I understand. A serial murder following an epitaph. With that as a victory condition, I tried reconstructing the games from the witch's side, but I never ended up making the moves Bito did. In those games, I could find several incomprehensible moves that clearly worked against that victory condition. I don't get it at all. This journey through her thoughts is just too rugged. Even so, you won't give up, will you? I won't. I promised. Kill me. Let me die. I promised to let her die peacefully, and I'm the only one who can do it. Bito's right ankle was bound with a heavy, cold steel shackle. It wasn't tied to anything, so it didn't restrict her movement. However, it symbolized restriction. It was a visualization of the bonds that prevented her from leaving the game until she either won or lost. And the shackle was probably hurting her. The mercilessly cold shackle tormented her over and over inside her waking dream. Ugh. So there was never any sign of relief in her empty expression. Her eyelids would sometimes tremble like she was having a nightmare, and every once in a while she let out a pained gasp. Unless I win, Bito will never be released from the curse that prevents her from sleeping peacefully. Are you sure you want to be doing this? It seems the 5th game has already started. Not interested. Why should I take part in any game unless Bito's my opponent? If that's the only alternative, then it's a much better use of my time to reconstruct previous games while taking a journey in search of Bito's thought process. I'll be the next game master. Any objections? You've got none, right? I've got nothing but objections. Bito conceded the fight and is unconscious. Isn't this a loss by default and game over for her? I'll admit a lot's happened to Bito, and she's basically been KO'd for now. But that doesn't mean she's lost the will to fight. That's why I'm acting as her assistant. Get it? Bito was lying down on a deck chair, almost as though she was sleeping. However, she wasn't sleeping, and she wasn't awake either. She was nothing more than a living doll that had given up on victory, who had asked Battler to perform her last rites, and who had surrendered everything. Of course, if everyone just sat around, the next game, the 5th game, would never be made ready. So Lambda Delta had succeeded Bito as the next game master and announced that she'd prepare the next game. Quit messing around. This is a game between me and Bito. I don't know who you two are, but I'm not gonna let you carry on without us. No one asked for your opinion. Well, you do, Burn. Accept my challenge or not. Sure. Go ahead and inherit her role. The hell, quit messing around. I don't know who you people are, but I'm not gonna let you ignore Bito and me and just carry on by yourselves. Hey, take it easy. Okay, sure, a new player means you'll face new kinds of moves. I'm sure you'll see a lot of stuff that will confuse you, but even that might lead to some big hints, get it? Who cares? Quit saying whatever you want and deciding everything on your own. Bito's game has repeated 4 times, and you still don't understand anything, right? In that case, I expect that swapping out opponents might lead to some huge hints. That's none of your business. This is our game. Bito prepared it, and she designated me to be her opponent. I don't know what hole you two crept out of, but I don't want you screwing things up. In that case, wake Bito up, and make her get the next game ready. Can you? Bito won't be getting up for a while. Anyway, we don't even need to have another game. The 4 games she's already laid out are more than enough. And even if we do have some 5th game, there's no reason it shouldn't just be a puzzle Bito lays out and I take on. There's absolutely no reason for you two to butt in. Adler couldn't hide his irritation at the 2 witches, called Lambda Delta and Burn Castell, who had shown up well after the game start, and who were now taking charge on their own. It looked like these witches were of an even higher rank than Bito. So high, in fact, that even Bito's teacher, Virgilia, couldn't even come close. Adler had the feeling he'd seen these 2 several times before. However, this was the first time he'd known their names and spoken to them directly. You can't get the next game ready without waking Bito. That's why I'll prepare the next game. We aren't so patient that we're willing to wait forever for Bito to regain consciousness. Right, Burn? I don't like boredom. It really ticks me off. We really don't give a damn whether you're bored or not. Come on now. Leave everything to this perfect Lambda Delta-sama, okay? I'll take over as the game master. Don't worry, I won't play too much with absolute perfection. Just like Bito, I'll set up plenty of incomprehensible fakes, clues, and bonus hints. I'll make this game a huge hint that'll help you understand Bito's world even better, okay? Letting my voiceless emotions explode, I slammed the table hard. The 2 witches didn't flinch at all. One grinned. The other looked indifferent, as though nothing had happened. The 2 of them just stared at me silently, as though they were reproaching me. What's this? Not satisfied? Are you saying you'll step down from my 5th game? Isn't that a loss by default? Adler won't step down. Of course he'll participate in the 5th game. Don't just decide that yourself. I'm not gonna play along with you two. I don't give a shit. Then it really is a loss by default, right? The witch side wins this game. Is it really okay to end this with the humans surrendering? Hey, Comfy Dreams! Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for dropping by today. If you step down, the game will end with your loss by default. Get it? Oh, thank you so much for the sub! I really appreciate it, Comfy. Thank you for all your support. I really appreciate it. If you want to guarantee that your lonely sister always meets with miserable circumstances in an endless number of worlds, that option is indeed open to you. When Burn Castell mentioned Ange, Badler's expression changed instantly. You bastard! Don't you dare talk about Ange so lightly! Because you have an ally in me, Burn Castell, the Witch of Miracles, there exists the possibility of a miracle in which Ange's family comes home to her. Well, if you do throw that chance away, and guarantee Ange's endless futures all end in sorrow, that might be pretty interesting too. I vaguely understood what she was saying. Until I win in Bito's game, I'll remain trapped in this bizarre world, and if I abandon that victory, then most certainly my parents and I will never return to Ange. For Ange's sake, even though I know that the witches are toying with me, I must keep on fighting. Hey, Chio Cherry! Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for dropping by today. Good to see you. Damn it! What's wrong? You look unsatisfied. Have you already forgotten how angry you were when your sister was turned to mincemeat? You know, that spectacle where she was torn to bits, ripped to pieces by countless red-hot pliers. You'd better watch more closely next time, okay? Bernkastel pointed the palm of her right hand upwards. As she did, a pale light gathered there, and some kind of blue, glowing crystal appeared there. A scene was reflected on its sharp surface, but it wasn't the scene that surrounded them now. If you looked deep into that crystal, that fragment, then you would probably learn what was reflected on there. If you stared at it, you'd surely see the end Ange finally reached after waiting 12 years and giving up everything for the sake of her beloved brother. The scene of her death throes as her entire body was torn to bits while she still lived. Damn you! Without thinking, he grabbed at her collar, but as soon as he touched that which made up her form, it disappeared like foam on the waves. Then, as naturally as though she'd been there from the beginning, Bernkastel was leaning against a distant wall. If you step down from the game, this will become not just a fragment, but a definite reality. I won't be the one to create that future. You'll do it yourself. So decide, okay? Figure out what you want to do with your beloved sister's future. Badler's fist shook with anger, but even if he swung them down, he wouldn't be able to hit Bernkastel. The witch was like a phantom, or a cat, who wouldn't even let someone pet her if she didn't wish for it. And she was telling the truth. For Ange's sake, I can't step down from this fight, even if these unpleasant witches hijack the game board. That's just like you, Bern. You're even heartless when you threaten people. That's how it is, Badler. You aren't allowed to step down from the game board. You and Bito are nothing more than pieces on the board that exist to distract us from our boredom. Even your incomprehensible anger and irritation make for a wonderful treat to satisfy us. Well, what you're doing now only makes for a cheap snack, though. Like those curry-flavored potato wafers that sell for 30 yen a pair. You damn witches. Fights for Ange's sake, okay? And for Bito's too, right? In a way that was admonishing, or perhaps babying, like the headache you get after eating something too sweet, Bernkastel tormented Badler and smiled. By now, the host of this tea party, Bito, was absent. The guest witches were already making themselves at home. What do you do, Ujimiya Badler? Will you surrender to fate? Just step down. You've had enough of being toyed with as a witch's piece, right? It sure is tough being one of Bern's pieces. I'm sure she'll use you and throw you away just like she did with Ange. I'm not giving you the option of stepping down. Keep fighting for the sake of your sister's future. I'm your ally. Until you win, I'll support you so you can reach that future. For all eternity, until I get bored. I can't let her provocation and cajolery rile me up. These witches know I get mad easily, and they're trying to take advantage of that. Badler withstood it all and finally relaxed his clenched fists. You want to start this 5th game of yours, go ahead and do it. Do whatever you want. Yes, I will do whatever I want. Hey, where are you going? Even though Badler acknowledged his 5th game, he turned his back on them, much to Lambda Delta's surprise. If you're gonna be Bito's substitute, then I'm sure that Bernkastel witch over there can stand in for me if she wants. Not a bad idea. Better than a loss by default. What the heck? Are you gonna just ignore this episode 5 that I put so much effort into making? Rude, rude. Badler says he's going to take a break for a while. Until he comes back, I'll be his substitute. How's that sound, Badler? You do that. What's wrong, Lambda? So you'll refuse to play if it's against me instead of that fool Badler? Of course not. I'm just glad I get to play with you, Burn. Come on, let's play, let's play. Let's play together in Lambda Delta-sama's super, hyper, and cute episode 5. This technically is a world Bito created. You aren't going to ruin the atmosphere of the story, are you? Don't worry about that. I'm really good at reading between the lines for that sort of stuff. I made sure to use a Bito-ish atmosphere to make a tale that's even more interesting. Badler, make sure you come back as soon as your break's over, okay? You'll be ashamed to miss this. I've set up plenty of bonus hints that'll get you closer to Bito's secrets. Or at least that's what it'll look like, when it's actually filled with misdirection that makes stuff more and more confusing. Wait, hey Badler, why aren't you listening when a witch is talking? Without answering, Badler disappeared into the darkness. After shrugging and cackling, the witches immediately started playing with the game board they'd stolen from Bito. Can those witches really understand Bito's game? Since they're using the game board, the same game board, they cannot do anything this child cannot do. However, they can do things that this child wouldn't do. What do you mean, things she wouldn't do? The materials of chess exist so you can play chess. You cannot use them to play cards. However, when it comes to throwing chess pieces at your opponent and scribbling on the board, such things are not impossible to do. However, that would be blasphemy against the game of chess, so people choose not to do that. That definitely wouldn't be chess anymore. Bito's eyes seem to cloud slightly with sadness. Damn them. This game's between me and Bito. I won't let anyone else defile it. At that time, gold butterflies gathered and Ronov appeared, holding a tea set with black tea. Would you like some more tea? If you wouldn't mind. Certainly. So, how goes this journey of yours in search of Milady's thoughts? I don't have a clue, but I'm enjoying it. However, are you sure about this? Is it truly alright for you to relax here? You mean that game those witches just started all by themselves? Indeed. Just now when I went to serve them some tea, the murders of the first twilight had already taken place, and it seems as though the next murder would occur shortly. When Bito and I were playing, the game would be paused whenever someone left their seats. However, those witches wouldn't pause that game just because I wasn't around. Ronov, did you see their game? Just a part of it. How was it? Ronov lifted the pot high with an elegant gesture as he poured the black tea. After finishing that, he spoke. He gave us his impressions of it. It did not have love. What do you mean, love? My apologies. That is how a woman might put it. As a man, one might call it dishonorable. I understood what those words meant. When I met Vergilia's eyes, she shook her head slightly and stared at the floor. I believe it resembles Milady's games greatly on the surface. However, its foundation is quite different. Does it go against the rules of Bito's game? No, it does not. Lambda Delta-sama actually does understand the rules of Milady's game very well. However... Adler stood up. There was no need to make Ronov say any more. Adler-kun. Sorry, Ronov. I know you went to all the trouble of pouring this for me, but tea isn't really what I need. So, you will go after all? Yeah. We don't need any outsiders in our game. These guys weren't even here in the beginning. Because I've been loafing about, crazier and crazier witches have been introduced. And now they've hijacked this game between me and Beatrice. I've got to take it back. Right now, I'm supposed to be the one taking care of Bito's game board. That means I can't just sit around here. Thank you. I want to let this child hear those words. I'm sure she hears them. Milady is simply unable to answer. Bito lay there silently like a living doll with dull eyes. The game board she had created herself had been hijacked by incomprehensible people and was being turned into a mess. If I was designated to be her opponent, then Bito must have created this game for me. I've got to take it back. Wait here. I'll go and take it back. Of course, Bito didn't respond in any way. That's right. If she can't respond, then I have to protect it in her place. I'll be right back. Virgilia, Ronov, I'm counting on you two to look after this golden sleeping beauty. Yes, leave it to us. See you later, Battler-kun. And please, in the game without this child, try to find some part of her. If you can, then even if this child is absent, it will mean you have fought with her. You're right. It's all useless. What am I doing? Let's go. And let's take it back. Sorry to keep you waiting, witches. My break is over. When he faced the jet black heavens and yelled this, the whole world shattered as though it was made out of thin glass. Then, as though it had been that way since the beginning, it transformed to that smoking room where Balor had fought Bito so many times, and which the two witches had now hijacked. What do you think you're doing? You're only coming back now? It's way too late! Not only has the game reached the second day, it's already at the finale, get it? You never showed up, so I just advanced things on my own. Yeah, like you even waited for me in the first place. Baron was way more skillful and thrilling than you were, right? Shut up. I'm the player. You substitute witches can just take a step back now. Well, I don't really mind if you join in starting now, but there's probably no need for you anymore. Seriously, after all, we've already reached the climax. After this, Burn will probably corner me and win. What the hell? Nothing wrong with that, is there? Why don't we let him watch the final endgame? Of course. Come on over, Ushimi Battler. It's almost completely over, but here's the cute and elegant game I made. Episode 5, End of the Golden Witch. So there's the setup for this game. So here's the menu. They're showing us this because technically the Lambda Delta and Burn have reached the end of their 5th game. So this is like showing us who's alive and dead right now. So it looks like in this game, at the finale, Jessica, Hideyoshi, George, Genji, Rosa, and Maria are dead. Now I could click on them here and find out more details, but they're actually going to reveal this as we go. So I'm not going to click on the characters here, per se. The second day, October 5th, 1986. Right now, no humans exist on this island except for those in this parlor. And with one exception, it has been shown that none of them have committed murder. And the culprit is among these people. Whoa, whoa. That means it's conclusive, isn't it? Unless the culprit is a witch, who committed murder with magic, that is. It was you? You killed George, killed my husband! Why? Why? I didn't kill anyone. I didn't. In a panic, and with a voice that was far from calm, in a manner that was, to put it coldly, unsightly, Natsui denied the suspicion placed upon her. However, there was no longer any way around it. She stood up, brushed back her long hair, pointed it at Natsui, and said it one more time. You're the culprit. Ushimi and Natsui-san. Thank you for the stretch, Kieran. Yeah, the intro is very intense. It's very different from the one for the first half, where the first half was more about, like, the mysteries and making it seem, like, kind of ominous, and now it's almost like a celebration to pump you up and be like, yeah, I'm gonna solve this mystery and I'm gonna find out everything about it. Yeah, the hype up intro here. I'm glad you guys are into it. I really like the answers arc much more than the questions arc. They're so fascinating, but we still have to get through a little bit of exposition. So right there we saw the climax, but now they're going to rewind and show us, the player, what has happened up until then. It's Natsui, please open up. As she knocked loudly and repeatedly, Natsui yelled. Shortly after, there was a heavy clunking sound, and the sound of the door to Kinzo's study unlocking could be heard. As the door opened, a heavily sweet, venomous odor flowed out. Natsui was always ashamed of how she automatically grimaced at that, even though she thought it rude to the family head. Kraus was waiting for her inside the study. Natsui flew into his arms. His father? Is he? Calm yourself. Dr. Nanjo is examining him now. With an uncertain gait, Natsui walked towards the center of the study, supported by Kraus. There, a dignified bed fitting for the Ushimiya family head could be seen, along with Nanjo, Genji, and Kumasawa. Dr. Nanjo, his father... After sighing deeply, Nanjo left the side of the bed. On the bed, Kinzo could be seen lying down, asleep. He died peacefully. I don't think Kinzo-san had any regrets. Father, father... Sobbing, Natsui slumped over the chest of that man who had fallen into a sleep from which he would never awaken. Madam, please, stay strong. Father, father, this is just too sudden. Natsui couldn't stop crying over the death of the man whom she had loved like a second father. Kumasawa rubbed Natsui's back, consoling her. Kraus slumped into his late father's favorite chair. By sitting there, he might have been immersed in memories of his departed father. Or perhaps he thought that by sitting there, he might be able to understand just a little bit of the madness of Kinzo's later years, which he had never been able to comprehend before. And Nanjo, just as he had when Kinzo once sat in that chair, contemplating a chess move, turned his back and looked down over the outside world through a crack in the curtains. If only he'd been sick in bed for a year or so first. I do wish he could have died after a grace period during which the proper arrangements could have been made. It's the other way around. We should be glad he was in high spirits until the very end. At least that's true as far as public appearances are concerned. Nanjo understood that as well. Ushimiya Kinzo, who had risen like a comet and glittered like a supernova in the post-war business world, had died. His funeral would probably be of a fantastic scale, and it would also be the ceremony marking Kraus's inheritance of the headship. He would have to arrange everything as the host of the event, carry out funeral diplomacy perfectly, and make it clear to all that the Ushimiya family still had enormous influence in the political and financial spheres. As Nanjo watched Kraus, he was vividly reminded of the time when Kinzo had been suddenly selected as the Ushimiya family head, when Kinzo had been lost and confused. In this way, he was able to understand Kraus' distress and sympathize with it. Natsui's sobs eventually subsided. Watching this and leaving Kumasawa to care for Natsui as a fellow woman, Genji returned to where Kraus was. And, as though asking what should be done, Genji lowered his head slightly. Genji-san and I will deal with the formalities. Kraus-san, perhaps he should contact the relatives first. Kraus, with his hand still over his eyes, didn't respond. Perhaps even though he had known this day would come, Kraus really couldn't hide his shock at how suddenly it had reached them. Leave this to Dr. Nanjo and me. Kraus-sama, I suggest you first speak with Madam. Maybe she heard that, or maybe it was a coincidence. As though responding to Genji's words, Natsui came over. Her eyes were red from crying so much, but she apparently understood the heavy responsibility that had been imposed on them even better than Kraus did. Starting now, you are the head of the glorious Ushimiya family. Let us show everyone, inside and out, that you have splendidly succeeded your father. As your wife, I, Natsui, am prepared to serve you until the day our coffins are laid down alongside each other. Trying to encourage her husband, who was overcome with shock, Natsui lent him some reassuring words. When Kraus finally lowered the hands that had been covering his face, he looked up at the ceiling with a blank expression and let out a deep, deep sigh. Please stay strong. There are a great many people who will plan to devour everything Father has left behind. We must fight to protect Father's honor and wealth. That is the first responsibility of the Ushimiya head. I understand. I do understand. Dr. Nanjo, Genji, please take care of the legal and funeral arrangements. Especially you, Genji. I ask you take particular care and see to it the funeral be a fitting one for Father. Certainly. And Dr. Nanjo, Father didn't pass away in a hospital, so... Indeed. An autopsy might be required depending on the circumstances. Can't you do something about that? Even though he has passed away, Father's body is precious. Any damage done to it would not be acceptable. I understand how you feel. However, it is also important to deal with these matters properly. And I don't really know how to say this, but several of the relatives might make things difficult, yes? Who knew how those vultures after the inheritance might try to find fault with them? They might claim to have found some reason to suspect the cause of death, using that as a point of contention to start some trouble. Right now, it was important not only to pay Kinzo's remains the respect they were due, but also to solidify the position of the new family head, Kraus. Understood. Please keep it to an absolute minimum. Make sure that Father's dignity is not damaged, even by mistake. That will be fine. Do not worry. In any event, leave Kinzo-san to us and stay by Kraus-san's side. Things will start to get quite difficult from here on out. I understand. And you too, dear. Please stay strong. Kraus was still staring blankly at the ceiling with a befuddled expression on his face. She understood the shock and heavy responsibility he bore. Natsui understood her husband's feelings as much as anyone. I will contact the relatives. Please rest for the time being. Also, an interesting fact that I read about Natsui is that her design was actually originally intended for Beatrice, but then they decided to make Beatrice blonde and wear like a more extravagant dress, so this design was given to Natsui. I also could never figure out, in both the anime and the visual novels, her ponytail is always like a slightly different hue than the rest of her hair, so it leads me to believe it's like a piece, like it's not real hair, but I'm not really sure. They never really address it, but it's a consistent detail that's different. Her ponytail always being a different color. Kraus didn't respond. Natsui, thinking him just to be a bit unreliable at the moment, decided she must offer her support. Seeing her husband like this actually spurred Natsui to action, and a resolute expression rose to her face. Things will get busy from now on. Let's start by doing whatever we can now. I'm sure my husband wants to have some time alone with Father. We should step out for a moment. Good point. After all, this will probably be the last time he gets that chance. Being in charge of a funeral is tiring work. There's no time to shed tears. If Kraus were ever to be given time to cry for his dead father, that time would have to be now. Everyone agreed with Kumasawa's words. Even so, Kraus continued to blankly gaze up at the ceiling and didn't respond in any way. Natsui urged the servants to go. I'll go talk to Jessica too. That child is now the successor to the headship. I'll make sure to tell her to be fully prepared. Wait. As they each started to make their way out of the study, Kraus finally spoke. They stopped walking. Yes. Wait. Yes. Hadn't she already stopped walking, just like her husband had asked? Despite that, he told her once again to wait. From those slightly weak words, Natsui understood that he'd probably stopped her because he wanted her to be by his side. The rest of you downstairs. I will stay with my husband. Please call us on the phone if anything happens. Certainly. I told you to wait! When Kraus suddenly raised his voice, everyone jumped and turned around. Unable to comprehend what she had done to spark her husband's wrath, Natsui ran up to him. What's wrong, dear? Have I said something rude? If so, please forgive me. No, that's not it. Wait a second, give me some time. Yes, I understand. It's important to sort things out inside your heart. We were just going to leave this place in silence, to give you some time, okay? Hey Lork, welcome to the stream, thanks for stopping by. And I'm telling you to wait before doing that. Listen up, no one move. Not even an inch. If you're tired, then feel free to sit in whatever chair or sofa you want. So just stay quiet and don't talk, don't do anything. Those unreasonable words felt like a glimpse of how Kinzo used to be. Natsui couldn't hide her slight surprise at this behavior, which almost made it seem as though Kinzo had possessed her husband. Natsui told the servants to wait for the time being. She ordered them to sit on the sofa a short distance off, approached her husband and spoke to him in a small voice. If you order it, I will wait however long you ask. I won't move. So please try and calm yourself. No, that's not it! That's not it! Was it really blood? Or was he actually being possessed? Hey Ash, welcome to the stream! Dang, why does this dude look like Seto Kaiba if he was blonde and middle-aged? I never thought of it that way. Kraus's disorderly style of speech strongly resembled Kinzo's. As she watched this, Natsui became certain that Kraus was Kinzo's son after all. That he was the true successor, more suitable than any other person. Natsuhi, come here. Kraus stood up and headed towards the window, trying to lengthen the distance between himself and the servants, waiting on the sofa by even a small amount. Natsui realized that he must have something secret to discuss. Yes, dear. What is it? Father dying is bad. But he has already passed away. We cannot turn back time. That's not it. It's bad that it happened now. What do you mean? I've been putting Father's fortune up as collateral. I won't be able to hide it when the division of the inheritance comes into question. What? Collateral, you say? How much? You remember how I helped out Kondo-kun back in Melody Land? Didn't I tell you to break ties with that person? I thought you said you'd refused him. Why? There is such a thing as a man's honor. I couldn't refuse. Kraus claimed to hold honor as a virtue. However, Natsui knew that he most often used that as an excuse for when he reluctantly went along with some deal they just couldn't refuse. That wouldn't be a problem if we had plenty of money on hand, but didn't you borrow quite a lot of money for the plan to turn this island into a resort? Yeah, I did! And there were people here and there who lent me a hand along the way. If I'm gonna repay them, I can't just sit around on my hands. You need money to repay people. You need money to make money. You can't even get started without money. And even the plan for this island wouldn't be proceeding smoothly if only there hadn't been problems with the planning company. I made contact with a government official in the city. I even got the governor's word that this would become the newest travel destination in the Tokyo metropolis. The groundwork I laid was completely perfect. Random chance and bad timing were against me. It was just a bit of bad luck, like a traffic accident. That was no accident. It was fraud. You were tricked. They were never drawing up plans for turning this island into a resort in the first place. That's not true! Higurashi-kun's vision was simply overflowing with foresight. The way his eyes always focused on the whole world and the future taught me that things I want to believe to be mere dreams were only the tip of the iceberg of what is possible. Expand your dreams to the whole world, to the future. You heard him say that too, right? Yeah, we have a lot of resorts on the horizon. Dulcinea Land, Eggman Land, Kraus Land. Everyone wants a resort. Yes, I heard, and I think I remember telling you what I thought after we returned home. I said he was suspicious, that he only spoke of dreams and didn't have his feet planted on the ground, that you must not have any further relationships with him. Kiro Land? We should make Kiro Land. Kirby Land. Yeah, Kraus being gullible is kind of funny. I just feel bad for Natsume, because she's always the one who has to deal with it. Higurashi-kun is a wonderful, pleasant young man. One could learn a lot from the way he lives. I could respect him despite his youth. I won't have you insulting him. That's what you said about the whole moon tourism thing. You kept saying it was visionary, that it looked to the future, that it had high aspirations, and what was the end result? Eventually you admitted yourself it was utter nonsense, right? I was sure something was wrong ever since that strange man showed up, claiming to be a high-ranking NASA official. He was planning for making trips to the moon? Who does this guy think he is? Musk? That foreigner was nothing more than an international swindler. Both Mr. Sonozaki and I were victims in that case. Right now, his vision isn't mistaken. In the future, there will surely come a time where the richest people in the world develop a liking for space travel. And the very first enterprise in that area would probably be monopolized by a single private company. That viewpoint is not mistaken. There was simply a group of international swindlers who were trying to take advantage of that fact and deceive investors across the world. And now I'm trying to tell you that the Sonozaki man was one of them too. Just how gullible are you? Why do you always just accept these suspicious offers without any doubts? Take that back! Mr. Sonozaki is a man with a brilliant future ahead of him. There's nothing suspicious about him. Because the dreams he speaks of anticipate the future, they sound crazy to people who can't see into the future. A woman like you can't see into the future. Yes, a woman like me can't see into the future. But I can see the present. Right in front of me, I can see a pitiful husband who's been taking them by sly double-crossing swindlers and still trusts them implicitly even after he's been tricked. Shut your mouth! You don't understand anything about money, or business, or economics. Don't try to butt in on your husband's job. A wife should be satisfied with doing housework. Keep your mouth shut. Ugh. The camera being focused on the chandelier when they're arguing about the moon tourism is hilarious. Kinda funny, isn't it? Without another word, Natsume fell silent just as Kraus had hoped she would. She was already far beyond anger and sadness, and the emotion that lay on the other side of those was an almost indifferent pity. Hey Jason, welcome to the stream! Thanks for coming by. Kraus, who had been in awe of Kinzo since he was very young, had started to subconsciously admire the way his father lived. Without realizing it, he had come to believe he could only be recognized as a man in his own right if he surpassed his father. However, Kinzo had been a mad genius, the likes of which had never been seen before in the Ushimiya family's long history. That talent was a gift from heaven, and it definitely wasn't genetic, much less something that could be learned. To give the two of them a chance to talk alone, Natsume told the servants not to tell anyone about Kinzo's death, and they left the room for the time being. Then she invited Kraus to her bedroom, and made him tell her everything about their current financial situation. These were the things that Natsume hadn't been told about, under the assumption that a woman had no business knowing. Natsume had herself made a point of avoiding this area in the past, thinking that it wasn't a wife's place to intrude on such matters. However, this might also have meant that she had abandoned her duty as a wife to protect her family. The depths of this sin had been made quite clear to Natsume. Kraus was probably tired of trying to defend himself. Perhaps because he had gotten a headache, he hid his face and sank into silence. Natsume noticed that the water in the electric kettle was boiling and stood up to refill her cup with black tea. When she touched the cup of black tea, she noticed for the first time. The sound of the cup and saucer clinking together told her that her fingers were shaking. Kraus had built up a large debt to obtain funds for his various projects and to cover the losses when they failed. Of Of course, he had put the mansion and property up as collateral. However, doing such a thing above board would result in the mortgage being registered. In other words, there would be a record that Kraus had put Kinzo's wealth up as collateral to obtain a loan without anyone's permission. Kinzo, Ava, and the others must not learn of such a thing. Therefore, Kraus had been putting those assets up as collateral using the worst possible method. I signed over the deeds and power of attorney. And what does that mean? What Kraus was saying probably meant he had, in essence, signed away the rights to his assets. If these assets had been used as collateral for a loan, then Kraus would still have some leeway under the law. He would have to deal with a bank, which would have absolutely no compassion, but they would be able to work something out within the rules set up by society. However, signing away the deed and power of attorney was a whole different story. In other words, even the mansion they were living in, if the person holding the deed were to decide to ignore his agreement with Kraus and sell the mansion to a third party right this moment, they would have no recourse whatsoever. Far from using collateral for a loan, this was basically the same as selling their house to borrow money. In other words, the moneylenders have the power to make or break the Ushimiya family as they please. If they were to suddenly sell our house on some slight whim, we'd have to pack our bags and leave right now, wouldn't we? That is technically true. However, everyone I have had dealings with is very reputable. This isn't consumer financing. It's a transaction based on trust between economically literate men. I trust them, and they in turn trust that by lending me money, I will achieve great success in business and give them massive returns on their investment. I signed over the power of attorney as a sign of good faith, and so they wouldn't have to doubt in the certain success of my business. What happens if I hesitate now? Wouldn't that mean even I have no confidence in my own business? If you were such a successful businessman, we wouldn't be in debt right now, would we? Natsuki only barely stopped herself from saying that. Father is dead. What happens next? Will your debt be exposed to the light of day? And will your siblings hold you responsible? That won't be all. It'll probably lead to criminal charges. Criminal charges? Why is that? It's better if you don't know. Anyway, this must not be learned of by anyone. Kraus looked at the floor shamefully, shaking his head over and over. If it would come to criminal charges, then he must have broken some laws. He's probably been so intent on raising a large sum of money that nothing had mattered to him but survival. Kraus had seriously believed he would succeed with several businesses, and that he would definitely gain huge profits. So, he had figured that even if he stepped over a few legal lines, he would be able to pay everything back before too long, and pretend the whole thing had never happened. This may have been the factor that lessened his resistance towards breaking a couple laws. Now Kinzo's death, the worst possible thing had occurred, and they wouldn't be able to keep it all hidden for long. What will happen to us? There's no need to worry. You may not believe it, but conditions are most certainly on the rise now. The value of the city real estate I invested in will rise rapidly. Right now, I am working on a project to integrate those and construct a massive business tower. This will be the most reliable of all my investments so far, and will prove to be the most successful. However, it will take a little more time for that to bear fruit. It's absolutely certain, but that doesn't mean it will happen now. Will the success of that venture be enough to pay back our debts? Of course it will! I'll be able to wipe out all the debt I've accumulated so far, so have faith in me. I only need a little more time. Hey V, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for stopping by. Good to see you. The father is already dead. We don't have that kind of time anymore, do we? I know that. That's why I have to obtain money from somewhere and pay off those debts right now. Oh, thanks for the stretch. You at home too, please stretch in your seat and make sure you sit up straight. Anyway, I need money. Money, a lot of it, right now. Ugh. As Kraus roared and clutched his head, he writhed about as if in pain. As she watched, several emotions swirled about in Natsumi's chest. Her emotions conflicted as she felt pity for her husband, while also feeling that he was a fool. And she felt a mixture of resentment and regret towards her own responsibility in letting her husband run wild for so long. Even if this day hadn't come, it should have been clear they were in a very critical situation. And yet he had carelessly waited for this moment to come. and now is writhing about. Her husband was so foolish and so pitiful. It would be easy to let herself get fed up with this. However, she was his wife. For a wife, ridiculing her husband as a fool would run in conflict with her responsibilities. If he was a fool, then she would have to support him enough to compensate. However, she didn't have a clue what she should do. Since there had been such a massive amount of money within arm's reach, it was only natural Kraus had tried to dip his hands into it. It would also be easy to tell him to be a man and give up on all this, but that would also run in conflict with her responsibilities. She was Ushimiya Natsui, the woman who had become Kraus's wife, and sworn to support him, the new head of the Ushimiya family, for her whole life. She had to somehow help her husband in his efforts to raise money. She understood it logically, but she couldn't suppress the indescribable dejection that seemed to rise up from the dark depths of her heart. That's right, father's hidden gold. 10 tons of gold is worth 20 billion yen. If I had that... That's right, if I had that, all our problems would be solved. Natsui, that's it! The witch's epitaph. Let's solve that, let's solve it together. If we could just find the gold, everything will work itself out. That's right, it must be hidden somewhere on this island. If we had that, if we had that... That hurts. Dear? Please stop it. Kraus, acting as excited as if he thought up a perfect, brilliant plan, grasped Natsui's upper arms tightly. Natsui couldn't help but be dumbfounded. She wasn't just taken aback because she had heard him bring up something as fake-sounding as the hidden gold. This was Kraus, who usually mocked the story of the hidden gold, saying it didn't exist and it was all an illusion his father had created to borrow a lot of money. That was why Natsui's doubly taken aback. Yes, let's have Jessica help out too. Maybe some things can only be solved with a child's sensitivity. This is a family crisis. All of us have to stick together. Yes, it's a fanciful riddle that father created. We should be able to solve it, and there's no reason we wouldn't be able to solve it. It's the only way. Oh, Natsui, this is wonderful. We still have an option left, and right here next to us. The gold is on this island. If we had it, every one of our problems would be solved. Ah ha ha ha. Natsui, call Jessica here right away. Let's overcome this family crisis together. Yes, right now. The gold is on this island. It's right beside us. Ah! Unable to withstand the pain in the arm he was twisting in his excitement, Natsui knocked Kraus aside. Kraus tipped over the edge of the bed and flopped over onto the floor. Please get a hold of yourself, and please calm down. Do you really think this Ushimiya family crisis could be solved by something as dreamlike as that? Natsui. Please cool your head and think of a realistic plan to gather money. I'm going to cool my head as well. Wait, Natsui! Maybe he had come to his senses the instant he fell over. Kraus tried to tell Natsui to stop, but she just kept walking. After closing the door forcefully, Natsui dashed away. Natsui ran through the corridor. Even though she didn't want anyone to see her like this, she ran headlong into Genji. My deepest apologies. Madam, have you been injured? I'm fine. Leave me alone. Certainly. Oh, Genji. How are things going at Father's study? It is just as you left it, although Dr. Nanjo's in the parlor. Is that so? Do you have the key to the study? Yes, right here. Give it to me. Let me have some alone time with Father. If my husband asks where I am, tell him you don't know. Certainly. After grabbing the key to the study that Genji was holding out to her, Natsui rushed up the stairs. She then flew into the study, finally letting out a wail and cried. Father, please forgive our foolishness. My husband and I aren't capable of inheriting all you created. Please, please, forgive us for our foolishness and our crimes, and if you could forgive us, please guide the way for us fools. Clinging to Kinzo as he slept in the bed, Natsui cried even harder. She kept imagining Kinzo sitting up suddenly and patting her head. No, Father isn't the type of person to pamper. More likely he'd yell at me to stop being so noisy. However, neither of these imaginations came true, because it was an undeniable fact that Kinzo had entered an eternal sleep. But even so, Natsui begged the sleeping Kinzo to forgive and help them. It was still only a few hours after his passing. Perhaps his soul was still here listening to her. Believing this, Natsui begged for Kinzo's forgiveness and help even more earnestly. Too noisy. Haven't I always said I hold silence as a virtue? Huh? That voice made Natsui jump up in surprise. When she faced in the direction the voice came from, she saw Kinzo sitting at the study desk, folding up his reading glasses. Did you get in a fight with Kraus again? Neglecting his wife like that? That Kraus only inherited my bad traits. Father? What a wretched-looking face. Wash it. Aren't you the wife of the successor of the Ushimiya family? You mustn't let the servants see you wear such a shameful expression. Yes, father. My apologies. Zombie Kinzo arc. You're imagining Kinzo sitting there with a tiny angel wings and a halo? Like Dragon Ball Z style? Natsui understood. This was just an illusion. One that Natsui had created out of her desire to speak with a memory of Kinzo as he once was. No, that wasn't it. She believed that just for now, Kinzo's soul had shown itself to her. She was sure that doubting this would cause it to vanish in an instant. It seems the instant the family headship was passed on, the family had reached a crisis. Yes, father. I wasn't able to support my husband. I am truly very sorry. Huh. The Ushimiya family is so very cursed. It was in a terrible state when I succeeded the headship too. That makes your suffering seem almost cute in comparison. Kinzo's succession to the family headship had come suddenly. At the time, he had nothing more than a single young man from a family branch, far separated from the Ushimiya main family. The main family might have had honor and tradition, but Kinzo had nothing to do with them. Then the principal members of the main family were wiped out in the Great Kanto earthquake along with their businesses. On top of that, there had been some complicated antagonism between the members of the family at the time, and the elders had all tried to impose their will on the others in that sinking ship. Because of this, they weren't even able to elect a leader to revive the Ushimiya family. Then they found a common ground and selected Kinzo, a youth with absolutely no ties to any of the opposing elders, to be the head. So the elders hadn't really entrusted Kinzo with the rebuilding of the Ushimiya family. Kinzo had been nothing more than their puppet, with his arms and legs pulled in opposite directions. Yes, I know a lot about your days of suffering, father. And then the war started. At the time, I was already tired of life. I hoped I would die on the battlefield, but I wasn't sent to the front lines. However, the state of the war grew worse with every day, and the time for the decisive battle on the Japanese mainland seemed to grow even closer. As terrible as it may sound, I prayed for that day to come quickly. After listening to the approaching footsteps of that Reaper, day in and day out, it's said that Kinzo started cutting his ties with the world one by one. And then, on that day when he had severed all his regrets, when he reached a state of enlightenment, it is said that he had a mystical experience. It is said that he met her, the Golden Witch, Beatrice. I made a contract with the witch and was given the power of gold and madness. On that day, the old me died, and a new me possessing the insane power of magic was born. I know, and after the war, you used your ingenious cunning to revive the Ushimiya family. The now deceased elders who knew Kinzo at the time had whispered to each other that Kinzo must have bumped his head on the battlefield and returned with a different personality. That was how much Kinzo had stood out after the war. Whether the story about Kinzo meeting a witch was true or not, there could be no doubt the extraordinary experience of war had prepared him for death and let him reach a state of enlightenment. If we want to describe the mystical experience following all that as a meeting with a witch, that claim certainly shouldn't be dismissed out of hand. That's right, you returned from the war, conquered the witch Beatrice and became the head of the Ushimiya family in the truest sense. Correct. Before I met Beatrice, I was nothing more than a puppet, only the head in name. I only became the head after conquering the Golden Witch. Father, Will this golden witch aid my husband Kraus now that he's the new head? Oh, she will, assuming he has truly succeeded the headship. What do you mean by truly succeeded? I mean it depends on whether he bears the responsibility and the pride of the Ushimiya family head in the truest sense. Natsui, you should understand this. The headship is not inherited by blood. It is inherited through spirit and conviction. Even though Kraus is my eldest son, he cannot be called the true head if he does not possess these things. And if that spirit were to dwell in a human, even someone other than Kraus, that would make them a splendid new head. Beatrice will lend her power to that true head. Isn't that right, Beatrice? When Kinzo called the witch's name, gold butterflies seethed out of every corner of the room. This fantastical scene had an otherworldly beauty to it. It was like standing in the midst of a blizzard of golden flower petals being blown about a rose garden of gold. As Natsui stared at the scene in shock, the gold butterflies gathered and formed a human shape. Then the witch of the portrait appeared. Indeed, I am the Ushimiya family alchemist, the golden witch Beatrice. I am free to run rampant. I listen to no one's orders. And there's only one person in the world who can control her. Me. That is why I am qualified to be the Ushimiya family head. Huh. So, it's that pride of yours that qualifies you. Pride requires self-confidence and bravery, and it is the embodiment of the insatiable desire to gain power to match those traits. That is why I control you. Watching men who speak of pride turn those desires into reality can be quite pleasant. The quiet man of action is nothing more than an excuse used by the extremely lucky. A true monarch also speaks of what he doesn't have, and he makes that pride a reality without fail. If one is to control me, they must possess such a monarch's pride. Do you understand, Natsui? A true monarch fears no hardship. They declare they will overcome anything without fail, even if they haven't figured yet out how. This gives hope to the weak. They gather, revere the monarch, and swear to assist him. This is where power is gathered and his word is carried out. Engrave that into your heart. Yes, father. Natsui understood. Through this mystical experience, Kinzo was telling her now to prepare herself to overcome hardship, even after his own death. Feeling a warm sensation rise up in her chest, she let the valuable words Kinzo had given her echo through her mind over and over. True monarch. In other words, the true head of the Ushimiya family must not fear hardship. Such a person must believe they can overcome any hardship. If they can't even believe it about themselves, they'll have no chance of overcoming their challenges. She suddenly felt very ashamed of the way she'd entered this room, sobbing and asking Kinzo what to do. I was foolish. Of course, there's no time for crying when an Ushimiya family crisis upon us. Oh, that's her. Oh, and of course, there's no time for crying when an Ushimiya family crisis upon us. Now that we've inherited the Ushimiya family from you, father, we must protect its honor no matter what. Huh. Even though you can't even draw a blueprint on how to repay Kraus's debts. Beatrice laughed unpleasantly. No, that wasn't it. She was testing Natsui to see what she possessed the mental readiness to be a true monarch. Natsui wasn't confused anymore. She answered clearly, gazing into Beatrice's eyes. Yes. At this moment, I have not yet discovered the method we should pursue. However, my husband is the new head of the Ushimiya family, and I am his supporting wife. So, I will proclaim it in my husband's place. Let us hear it. Ushimiya Kraus and Natsui will definitely overcome these trials and protect the honor of the Ushimiya family. You have nothing to worry about, father. Do you know the scope of Kraus's debt, as well as the horrible state things are in? Yes. If the worst happens and we are ordered to leave this mansion tomorrow, we won't be able to refuse. During the distribution of the inheritance, the relatives might even file a criminal complaint. However, there is no need to worry. We will repay all the debts before then and restore our honor. As she stood at attention with a resolute attitude, Natsui proclaimed this clearly, with Ushimiya Kinzo and Beatrice as witnesses. For a while, they remained silent as though weighing Natsui's resolve. Then Kinzo chuckled and turned away. How vexing. Why couldn't this person have been my son? The very fact a woman with such disposition married your son is another sign of your great luck. Beatrice, this is my final order. Now that you're no longer the head, I am not obligated to obey your orders. Huh. In that case, obey the orders of the new Ushimiya family head. You are no longer the head, and Kraus is not yet the head. Whom are you suggesting I serve? I will leave that to you. It is up to you to decide who is qualified to succeed the Ushimiya family head, and who is fitting to bear the mark of the one-winged eagle. You will ensure that is so. I refuse. I won't listen to the orders of a man who isn't the head. No, this is different. This is a will. The last order that the head left behind for you. Then it seems I will have to obey. After all, I can be quite accommodating. Liar. Huh. You're only doing this because it caught your interest, aren't you? I can't hide anything from you, can I? Natsui. Yes, father. Go and overcome your hardship. Yes. That might have seemed like a mere response to Natsui, but to Kinzo and Beatrice, it seemed to be something of a much greater significance. Beatrice nodded deeply, and with a motion as elegant as her dress, she bowed deeply before Natsui. The Ushimiya family alchemist, the Golden Witch Beatrice, is present. I shall give you my aid to assist the Ushimiya family in overcoming another crisis. Thank you. I will need your power. We will most certainly overcome these trials. I will not hold back on my support for your cause, but there is something I must warn you about beforehand. I understand that your troubles now could be solved if we were to grant you a vast quantity of gold, like I did when I saved Kinzo from his crisis. However, that is something I cannot do. Is that so? Sorry, Natsui. Beatrice's gold came from a contract limited to my generation. It was agreed it could only be passed on to another if that person solves the witch's epitaph. The gold is sealed away by the epitaph. As long as that is not solved, you cannot be given the golden magic. I understand. Then I shall search for another method by which we must save ourselves from this crisis. My husband said his plan would take time, but he also said it would surely be sufficient to repay our debts. If we can buy enough time for that to happen, we will be able to overcome this trial. Good, Natsui. Continue. But Kinzo is already dead. The doctor and servants are preparing his funeral. You are about to contact the family members. By your own hand, you will bring an end to this ploy for time. How charming is a guillotine where you lower the blade yourself. Startled, Natsui looked up at the ceiling. There wasn't actually anything there. But even so, Natsui had found something. So, the magical power has descended. Natsui, have you made up your mind? What magic of miracles do you desire from me? Once again, all of those who had witnessed Kinzo's corpse were gathered in the study. Kraus was still impatient and clutching at his head. Genji was as expressionless as ever. Nanjo and Kumasawa wore bewildered expressions on their faces. But in stark contrast to all of them, Natsui wore a resolute expression. Dear, let me ask you one more time. Your plan for raising money is absolutely certain. Yes. Give it a year, no, just half a year, and it will certainly bear fruit. But it's just impossible to hope for anything right now. Then we will wait. But you said it yourself. Father is already dead. Father has not passed away. He's still there, as healthy as ever. When Natsui said this, everyone jumped and looked up, because they instantly understood what those words meant. However, Kraus alone didn't get it right away and asked her. What? Do you mean by that? Father's already... in reality, right there! I will say it again. Father is still in good health. He is busy with his research, so he'll be even less able to leave his study than usual. Because of this, we must handle all external affairs ourselves, so that Father could devote himself to his research without being burdened by meaningless tasks. In short, nothing will change the way things have been. Do you understand, Genji? Yes. The furniture of the one-winged eagle will continue to serve the master. Kumasawa, and you, Dr. Nanjo, do you understand what I'm saying? Oh, Is that truly alright, Natsui-san? It may be true that Father passed away today, but if everyone right here, right now believes, we can revive Father with magic. It's impossible, madam. That's just too much. The time of death will be made clear during the autopsy. We can't stop it from looking suspicious. Father will not pass away, so there will be no reason for there to be an autopsy. Of course, she wasn't planning to make it seem like Kinzo would live forever. The fake life given to Kinzo would only last until Kraus could repay his debts. After that, Kinzo's soul would finally be able to rest in peace. Nanjo repeatedly said that the time of death would be discovered during the autopsy, but Natsui kept saying this wouldn't be a problem. Father will not pass away by being reported dead. I see. He'll be reported missing. After clapping his hands together, Kraus stood up, shaking his fists. Yes. Once we manage to pay back the debt and finish our preparations for laying Father to rest, we will then announce that Father has disappeared. Rokenjima's vast, uncultivated forest was the perfect place to stage a disappearance. One day Kinzo would go out to the forest for a walk and never return. They would search for him without success, and then be forced to report his disappearance. If he disappears, we could file a report of his death even without a corpse. In other words, we can hide him long enough to have him declared legally dead. What do you think, Dr. Nanjo? There won't be any problems that way. Yes, that might work. Is this really okay, madam? If we stay silent, then I'm sure we could keep his master's death a secret. However, if we were to slip up even once and let someone find out... Kumasawa, don't be so loud. Father is sleeping right over there, correct? Are you trying to wake him? It isn't a corpse. Kinzo is sleeping. As Natsui said that, Kinzo lay quietly on the bed as though there was nothing odd at all about her words. Come, try to remember. What form did you have? What sort of life did you enjoy? Once again, a storm of gold butterflies started to swirl, covering Kinzo's cold body. Then, after the butterflies exploded into fine gold powder and disappeared, just like those fairy tales that have been told over and over since long ago, Kinzo slowly opened his eyes and sat up. Father! Natsui, let me first make one thing clear. I did not coax you into doing this because of my attachment to life. You liar. Don't tell me you didn't anticipate this at least a little. How does it feel, Kinzo? How is your body? It isn't bad, but it feels somewhat like being in a dream. I feel light. You're a being that wasn't permitted to remain in this world, yet you still remain here. Don't start complaining about a little discomfort now. Is your body truly alright? Is it really okay? Huh. Actually, it feels quite pleasant. If this is what the world after death feels like, playing the ghost might not be half bad. How is this, Natsui? Kinzo is revived. That means a funeral is unnecessary. Your hardship has been resolved. Beatrice. As Natsui tried to find words of gratitude amidst her confusion, Beatrice waggled her pointer finger and spoke. Hey Arbon, welcome to the stream. Thanks for dropping by. Good to see you. There is no need for thanks. A ruler is allowed to be proud. I will not pay heed to requests, but I will follow orders. Even so, I'll say it. Thank you. This way, you've brought some time for my husband. We will handle the rest. Be warned, Natsui. Kinzo may have revived, but that is not an eternal thing. It will only continue as long as my magic does. Be warned, the magic-resisting toxin might destroy the magic. You must understand the laws of magic correctly and work hard to maintain it. I can show you a miracle, but it is your role to grasp it and hold it. Of course, we definitely won't neglect the miracle you've given us. Very well. Yes, it would appear masters need to be changed out every once in a while, just like floor mats. I like it. I shall serve you, Ushimiya Natsui. I am the Ushimiya family alchemist, the Golden Witch Beatrice. Call my name whenever you wish, I shall appear and grant you a miracle. Thank you. I am Ushimiya Natsui. I will employ you and protect the honor of the Ushimiya family. So now we finally get to see what actually happened to Kinzo before the story began. Family conference of the previous year, October 5th, 1985. Yeah, this will all go very well, I'm very sure, right? Nothing's gonna go wrong. The rose garden was truly splendid this year. The roses were blooming like crazy, as if competing with each other. In that rose garden, Kinzo, Kanon, and Natsui could be seen. Once again, the flowers have grown wonderfully this year. It must be the result of your care. Thank you very much. The weather just happened to be good this year. Thanks to your care, the garden is even more beautiful than usual. Good work. Thank you very much. If today weren't so special, we might have been able to admire the roses while enjoying some black tea. Kinzo shrugged. Today was a family conference. When it came to the other siblings' businesses, none of the news had been good. On the contrary, those siblings probably planned to turn the conversation to the topic of Kinzo's remaining life and hold a quiet feud over the inheritance. Those people are quite unpleasant. By the way, what about Kraus? Is that debt repayment plan of his proceeding well? It does seem to be a realistic plan. However, it's a plan on quite a large scale. It doesn't seem to be bearing fruit quite as well as he expected. If possible, I would have hoped to have that resolved before today's family conference. Yes, my apologies. Kinzo being nice is even scarier than Beatrice being nice, right? Kinzo's actually really nice, but that's only because this Kinzo is like... is a... what's the right word? A disillusion created from Natsui. Are you sure you're okay, Kinzo? Casually walking around a place like that? How has she gotten up there? Well, it's fairly pointless to wonder about that sort of thing when you're dealing with a witch. Yeah, like Maria's vision of Rosa, right? It's kind of the same thing. That's a perfect analogy. Beatrice was casually sitting on the roof of the arbor, almost as though she had been basking in the sun. You'll find it's a very common theme throughout Umineko. It's the reliability of the narrator. Those relatives are like a massive lump of the magic-resisting toxin, and they'll be intruding in on us. If you bump into them, your soul will evaporate in an instant. Huh. I am already dead. Evaporating will be no detriment. We can't have that happen. Please, for the sake of the Ushimiya family, lend us your strength just a little longer. Natsui, it seems the boat carrying the relatives have left the arbor. Perhaps it's about time to bring an end to this walk of yours. Is that so? Thank you. Please return to the study, Father. My, how tiresome to go back inside when the weather is this perfect. Don't grumble, Kinzo. Right now you're nothing more than a ghost I gave life to. It'll be troublesome for both me and Natsui if you're scared away by the toxin. Just be a good boy, shut yourself away in the study, and wrap a blanket around yourself or something. Huh. Merely receiving the chance to enjoy these roses after death makes me extremely fortunate man. I understand. I shall return to the study. But I would like some black tea. Kanon, tell Genji to bring me some. Perhaps some Marco Polo would do well today. Certainly. Then let us go our separate ways. Natsui, you must conduct the family conference splendidly in my absence. Of course, Father. He can't say it in front of them, but my husband is already the Ushimiya family head, and I will do all I can to ensure I don't embarrass him as his wife. Compared to Kraus, who's had a stomachache since this morning, you are so very composed, Natsui. My son is quite hopeless. My husband is talented in his own way. Supporting him where he's weak is my duty as his wife. Indeed. Carry out your task with precision. I will make sure to stay shut away so I don't get in the way of this farce. Canon, go with father to the study, and then have Genji prepare some black tea. I'm not so senile I need your help to stand up. Here I go. Refusing Canon's attempt to lend him a hand, Kinzo rose from the flower bed he had been sitting on. The retired head left everything, and Natsui's hands returned to the study at a gentle pace. You're looking well. You possess a sense of dignity reminiscent of Kinzo's deceased wife. On the off chance a magic-resisting toxin does reach father, will the magic dissolve in an instant? Indeed, in the blink of an eye. I can vanish whenever I please, but if someone already dead such as Kinzo loses form, he'll be instantly tossed away like dust by the winds of the sun. You must take care. Yes, I understand. You may have talent as a witch. The magic-resisting toxin has been building up in your system over the years, and yet you are still able to understand magic. If you and I had met during your youth, you might have become a powerful witch by now. I am the wife of Ushimiya Kraus, the family head. I would become even a witch or a demon to protect his honor. I am deeply grateful for the power of your magic. I wouldn't have been able to protect the honor of the Ushimiya family without you. Let's discuss that at another time. I'd like to enjoy it with just the two of us women drinking tea. A friend of mine who went to Sri Lanka sent me some black tea with a wonderful rose fragrance. Oh, you mean Dimbula? That isn't bad. Then you should also have some patis on the side. You must serve me some as a reward if I manage to trick everyone for this entire family conference. It's a promise. Understood. I promise. Then I'll see you later. Yes, later. The witch made her body crumble into the rustling winds, became gold flower petals and scattered in the thin air. Natsui watched her go, then turned on her heels and headed for the mansion. And then there were none left in the rose garden. Okay then, it's break time. Got any complaints so far? For those of you that joined us late, at the end of episode 4, Beatrice battled Badler, and she lost, but she gave Badler one last riddle. So, at the start of this episode, Beatrice is actually comatose. She has been unresponsive ever since she lost to Badler. So instead, Lambda Delta and Burn Castell took over the game board. Lambda Delta is acting in Beatrice's place, and Burn Castell is acting in Badler's place, because Badler refused to play their game. But once Ronov told Badler that they were playing with her game board and using it in a way that was dishonorable, Badler decided to go back. So right now, what's happening is Lambda Delta and Burn are catching Badler up on what has happened, because when Badler rejoined them, they were already at the climax where Natsui was declared the culprit. So they're rewinding time to tell Badler everything that has happened to come up until here. So that's why we're not going to see Beatrice, or Meta Beatrice, right now on the game board. It's Lambda Delta. None at all. If you have time to pee, or you have to pee, why not go and do it? What a rude thing to say. Kinzo is already dead, right? But he's walking around and talking, isn't he? Doesn't that mean this is magic? Of course, I doubt this move will work on you after all this time, Burn. But what about you, Badler? Isn't this weird? Don't you have to accept the existence of the magic that revived Kinzo? If you're trying to imitate Bito, it's pissing me off, so stop it right now. Figured it out? Then come on, how are you gonna answer, Badler? Kinzo was just out for a stroll. Why not act like you always do and start holding your head crying, "This makes no sense"? Come on, use that old, "it's all useless" catchphrase and give me one of your classic nonsensical counter-arguments. There's no way a human who's supposed to be dead could be walking around, right? Is this all because of some unknown virus called the Rokonjima syndrome that causes mass delusions? Or do the scales of mysterious foreign butterfly that only lives in Rokonjima happen to be hallucinogenic? Or is it because a mysterious secret organization called the Mountain Dogs made an as-of-yet undiscovered drug called Puru Puru Pico Puyo, which causes mass delusions? Let me hear tons of this wonderful crap. I thought it was Badler speaking at first here, that's why I started off with Badler's voice and changed it. Just shut up. This isn't even a problem. Grandfather is dead at this point in time. There's no way he exists. The only reason he's able to act like he's alive like this is because of Aunt Natsui's lie, her attempt to make it through the family conference while hiding grandfather's death. So think about this too. Kraus said that they would only have to hide his death for 6 months. But it appears they had to hide his death during the last family conference, a year ago. So fast forward to today, they're still hiding his death. It's been more than a year. In fact, probably more than a year and a half, I would say, since his death, and they've been hiding it. Oh, it's Natsui's lie. You can revive the dead by lying. Wouldn't that make it Natsui's magic? This world is like a brawn tube before you looked in it. It's the world of the cat box before you open it. As long as Aunt Natsui says she took a walk with grandfather, as long as no one can confirm it's a lie, it's possible to display Aunt Natsui taking a walk in the garden with grandfather as Natsui's reality. That means it's possible for her grandfather to appear. That extremely unflattering applause is coming from Bern Castell. Bravo. You're much calmer without Bito around. Quiet. You shut up too. Wait a second, Badler. According to your theory, sure, it might really be possible for Kinzo to appear if Natsui is the only person there. If Natsui claims to have observed Kinzo in a world with no one except Natsui in it, no one can deny it, right? But Canon was in the same place, and he also was looking at Kinzo, right? How would you explain that? That's no problem at all. Canon-kun is a servant who works for the Ushimiya family. Aunt Natsui probably ordered him to keep to her story, so she could hide grandfather's death. Because of that, Canon can see grandfather even though he shouldn't exist, just like Aunt Natsui can. Too bad, Lambda. Badler isn't gonna fall for that kind of child's play anymore. Seems so. Well, this is nothing more than an opening before the games really started. Like an aperitif before the meal. An appetizer at a bar. Green tea at a sushi restaurant. Shut up. So, we aren't gonna get anywhere unless I say it again in blue text, huh? Looks like it. Would you mind? The reason grandfather's strolling around like nothing happened even though he's already dead is that people who want to make it seem as though he's alive created an illusion of him. People who think the same way can share in that illusion. Then they'll talk as though grandfather actually exists and was with them until a second ago. That's why he's strolling around like it's perfectly natural. Because of this, the illusion of grandfather is unable to appear in front of people who aren't in on this with Aunt Natsui. That's why they made up the story of him shutting himself away in the study and refusing to come out. In the games before now, grandfather has always locked himself up in his study. We never met him directly. However, some people said things that made us think he was locked up in his study in a bad mood, such as claiming to have met him only a short while ago. We blindly accepted their statements and believed grandfather was in the study. That's why it was possible for an illusion of grandfather to exist in the study. That's right, in the games before now, the only person who met grandfather were Uncle Kraus, Aunt Natsui, and the servants. Because they all stuck to the same story, an illusion of grandfather was able to exist on this island, making it seem like he was alive. You even showed us a scene at the beginning of this game, where Aunt Natsui convinced Dr. Nanjo and the rest to cover up grandfather's death. I'm not gonna fall for a cheap trick like that after all this time. Well, not bad, but I was hoping for the unknown drug, Puru Puru Pico Puyo. There's no way he'd say something so ridiculous, right? After all, supposing that such a thing exists would be just as bad as surrendering to the fantasy genre. Whether it's a virus, or a drug, or an illness, anything that hasn't been discovered yet is in violation of Nox's 4th commandment. So like, when I played through Umineko with you guys, that was my second time reading it, and like, since I already knew the outcome, I was able to start looking at things like, oh yeah, you know, Kraus, Natsui, and the servants are the only ones that see Kinzo around alive. And once you start realizing that, the second playthrough of this, I mean, it's a ridiculously long game, I don't expect people to play through it more than once, but once you start looking back, you realize that all the rules that they're stating here actually did work retroactively. This game is giving Ace Attorney vibes but in a creepy way. Yeah, it's the same type of genre. In fact, Ace Attorney did inspire the writing for this game, and the reason why Battler has spiky hair and a suit is because he was inspired by Phoenix Wright. That's why he does the pointing pose as well, and that's why I love this series. It's such an interesting take on it as well. What do you mean, fourth commandment? So this is new, this Nox's fourth commandment. This is going to be important for this game. Nox's fourth. It is forbidden for unknown drugs or difficult to understand scientific devices to be used. The rule states such things can't be used during a murder. What the hell? Unknown drug X and unknown scientific device X should be the best kinds of weapons to use when fighting against a witch. That's what I'm talking about. All those violate the rules of a proper mystery. Supposing an unknown virus, an unknown drug, an unknown sickness, or unknown XXX was used puts it totally in the fantasy genre. My condolences. If that was your theory, then it's game over for you. Hey, what are you talking about? You think you've been fighting in direct opposition to Bito. But that's not actually true. You haven't been in direct opposition. You've been fighting along with her from a slightly different angle. All this playing detective you've done hasn't been fantasy versus mystery. It's only been fantasy versus anti-fantasy. I don't have a clue what you're talking about. But there's one thing I do get. It sounds like you're saying there's something wrong with my fighting style. We're fighting to kill the fantasy, known as the illusion of the witch. That means interpreting this tale as a proper mystery. In other words, from the very start, we have to ignore any and all elements that violate the taboos of the mystery genre. Ignore, you say? For example, several closed room murders have occurred in the games before now, right? Yeah? At every single crime scene, you enthusiastically check with Bito to make sure there are no hidden doors, right? Then that leads to a flashy bunch of red truths weaving together all over the place, almost as though that itself is the battle. I call that a waste of time. After all, it's clearly specified in Nox's third. It is forbidden for hidden passages to exist. In the mystery genre, hidden passages mustn't exist. So if you want to interpret everything as a proper mystery, entering this whole debate over whether hidden doors or not means you've lost from the beginning, see? After all, there aren't any. As soon as you suspect they might exist, it's already game over for you. In other words, you assume you can't start theory building just because no one's yet proven that hidden doors don't exist at the crime scene. That's why I call you naive, and a failure at the mystery genre. You've already lost once you start thinking that. You thought you were waging a fight to interpret everything like a mystery novel, right? Then you've got to follow the conventions of the mystery genre. Hey Dev, welcome to the stream, thanks for dropping by. Well, that's it in a nutshell. Hidden doors must not exist in any of the crime scenes. That means any time spent asking whether they exist or not is wasted. So these Nox's commandments for mystery novels is a real thing. There was a mystery writer named Nox, and he kind of laid out the rules of what he thinks makes a good mystery genre. That's where these come from. So again, it kind of gives me a lot of Zero Escape vibes, because it takes a lot of real life theories and ideas and like packages them together into one thing, like how we talked a lot about like Devil's Proof and Brawn Tubes and Hempel's Raven and Nox's Commandments. I think I know what you're talking about. I've heard about it somewhere. Is this like that 10 basic rules for mystery novels or something? Yeah, that's right. They're the 10 wedges for drilling witches brandished by Nox, the peerless archbishop of witch hunting. Those are the true weapons with which to fight and defeat the fantasy known as the illusion of the witch head-on. It's just like you, Burn, to bring in such a troublesome weapon. That's the fantasy genre's arch-enemy. So you'll deny the existence of hidden doors right from the start, without even investigating the crime scene. That sounds more like fantasy to me. Lambda, who's in charge of the witch's side, is fantasy. I'm the one who's fighting her. Mystery. What are you? You're just barely anti-fantasy, doing nothing but dodging over and over and denying fantasy. You're opposed to absolutely everything, but you can't make any counter-proposals. You're like a politician from some country. Shut up. I didn't come here to speak gibberish with you two. Continue the story right now. Be quiet. That sleeping princess right behind you looks like she's in pain, doesn't she? This sounds like a violent book club meeting. When he turned around, he saw Bito's living corpse resting in a chair. However, sweat glistened all over her body, and it felt like she was breathing a little harder than normal. She looked as though she was suffering from a high fever. Bito, what's wrong? Are you okay? What do you mean, is she okay? You sure do say some weird things. Aren't you fighting to kill this girl? We've rewound this 5th game for your benefit, but right now Byrne has done a good job cornering her opponent and is about to break through the illusion of the witch. Her existence has been almost completely denied. It's only natural she's suffering. Hey, Twilight Red Mage, welcome to the stream. Thanks for dropping by. Good to see you. Just now, even you smashed the illusion of the witch by saying there's no way Kinzo exists. Here's the proof that your attack reached Bito. This agony of hers. I tried to at least wipe away the sweat on Bito's forehead with a handkerchief. It's true that I promised Bito I'd let her die, but it was supposed to happen peacefully. I wasn't planning to make her suffer first. My goal isn't to make the sleeping Bito suffer like this before killing her. As if they had seen right through to my mixed feelings, the two witches grinned. Dad only overheard because he kept yelling about the inheritance, right, Aniki? It isn't my fault, it was just an unlucky coincidence, okay? He just happened to be in the corridor and heard. It was an accident. I tell you, an accident. Could you two give it a rest? Just call it our bad luck this time and give it up. If you leave a man alone, his mood will pop right up back to normal. Hopefully Father's feelings weren't hurt so much he writes up some strange will. The relatives took a deep breath and fell silent. Hey, you can't jump around either, Miria. What do you do if Anne-chan falls? Sorry to keep you waiting. The boat is ready. Okay, let's go. Won't get anywhere by complaining now. We eagerly await your return to this island. Yep, this is the previous year's conference, so Ange is here. Young, like, 6-year-old Ange or whatever it is. This is them leaving the previous family conference. So it seems like Natsui succeeded. Natsui was sitting on a bench in the rose garden, looking completely worn out. However, when she noticed that Kana and Kumasawa were coming back, she immediately sat up straight, regaining the dignity of the head's wife. Did the boat leave? Yes, it departed just a minute ago. I see. Good job seeing them off. What is my husband doing? He returned to his room a short while ago. He is resting. Since the previous day, Kraus had been almost overwhelmed by anxiety over the thought that Kinzo's death might be discovered. When the family conference ended, his weariness must have suddenly gotten a hold of him. However, the way he had refused to let even a sliver of his true intentions slip out, and the manner in which he had managed to act as though everything was normal, showed that Kraus's nerve was nothing to sneeze at. How was it? Did they seem to notice anything suspicious about Father? Not at all. Eva-sama and the rest were having a big ruckus over how the master overheard them talking about the inheritance, right? Wasn't their panicking just now priceless? Yes, they were quite shaken up. Kumasawa, you really are quite an actress. The way you acted all panicked in the corridor made it seem like Father really was there. Kumasawa-san is quite talented at that sort of thing. Oh, come on now, I don't deserve such praise. Ho ho ho. I always have to give Genji strict orders not to easily swallow your stories when you call in sick. Now that's just too harsh, madam. Oh. You really did a good job. Both of you, as well as Genji and Shannon. We'll get your pay for a month's worth of past vacation time, as well as 5 extra days, just as promised. Consider this a confidential benefit. Talk with Genji when you collect your pay, so the other servants don't find out. Sure, we understand. Right? Kumasawa-san, your voice now is too loud. Oh, not good, not good. Oh. Good point. Let's leave it at that for the time being. We should all return to our regular duties. That's right, I've had Goda prepare some special tea. Tell him to serve it. Also keep in mind that Goda is not in on the Kinzo being dead thing. It's just Genji, Kumasawa, Nanjo, Kanon, and Shannon. Natsui let them know she wanted to be left alone for a while so she could drink some black tea in the rose garden. The black tea that had been carried all the way to the beach, or to the bench, was a Sri Lankan tea dimbula that she had promised Bito, along with some patis. Sitting on either side of the snack, staring at it curiously, the wife of the head and her witch could be seen. So this is patis. I just assumed it would be some kind of baked sweet. Apparently Natsui, not realizing it had a curry-like spicy flavor, had started choking after putting it in her mouth. To describe it in Japanese terms, it was like fried dumplings stuffed with mashed, curry-flavored potatoes. As a household dish, it would probably be pretty popular with the kids. However, something of a shock to Natsui, who had expected that treat to go with tea would be sweet. Didn't you know? Dimbula always goes with this. Black tea always goes with cookies. Oh, but chocolate is good too. You must have sweet bean jelly with Japanese tea, although salted kombu also works. Chinese tea goes with Chinese dumplings, though I like mooncakes too. I'm surprised. You know a lot about various cultures, don't you? Well, I haven't been living 1,000 years for nothing. I've tried refined teas from all over the world. Perhaps you could call it a journey through the world of tea. Yeah, the soundtrack for this game is great, and a lot of the soundtrack, or a lot of the music we've heard thus far, is music that's been recycled from episodes 1 through 4. But the new music they added for episodes 5 through 8, you'll see it when we get to all the action and the interesting suspense themes. They're really good. They blow it out of the water even more. That does seem like it would be a wonderful way to travel the world. Before today, I never knew that one could enjoy tea like this. I will treasure this experience. I cannot leave Rokenjima. This is the only way I can travel. What about you? I'm sure you've elegantly traveled the world like any wealthy wife might. Before Jessica was born, my husband took me to many countries. Before marrying, I never once traveled overseas, so each time was a fresh and new experience. Huh, sounds like you were also born into a very rigid family. It was strict, but they gave me a wonderful upbringing. It would be rude to my father and mother to call it rigid. That's a pretty eloquent way to call it rigid. Kraus might have pitied Natsui, or he might have wanted to take her away from the rigid Ushimiya family for a little bit and let her rest. Or he might have simply wanted to take his wife around countries he knew well, to show off everything he knew. Unlike father, my husband is fond of Asian nations. Hong Kong, Taiwan, Korea, Thailand. I think we also went to Malaysia. That Kraus, was he trying to rebel against Kinzo's Western tastes? But Asia's good too. After all, the Japanese are strongly influenced by the West. When they think of foreign countries, only Western ones comes to mind. But you mustn't forget the East. I myself knew a few things about the West, but I knew very little about the East. I seem to recall my husband making fun of me now and then during our travels. Vito subtly peered into Natsui's heart as the latter grumbled that the trips had been very tiring. Are you listening? This is called an areca nut. It's a popular luxury food item around here. It looked like a small, round, gourd-like nut that had been smashed with cucumber wedged in it. At a glance, it looks as though it would probably taste like pickles. I see. So I just bite it here. As she tried to bite the one her husband was holding, he suddenly moved it away. It felt kind of embarrassing, like she was a fish after some bait. Whoa, wait up. You have to eat it a certain way. Yes, you are supposed to bite it. Bite it. Chew it. But don't swallow it. Huh? Even though you bite and chew it, you can't swallow it. Yes. Bite and chew. Don't swallow. And don't drink the juice. It'll make your stomach hurt. I don't understand. Why would you eat something like that? Think of it as something like gum. Chew it and enjoy the flavor. Then take the scraps you've bitten in the juice and spit it out into a paper cup like this. Dear, the inside of your mouth is bright red. Wipe it off, wipe it off. Ah! Even her favorite handkerchief, which she had wiped Krause's mouth with, had bright red marks on it. Something that's poisonous if eaten or drunk, and it makes the inside of your mouth so bright red. And having to spit something out after you put it in your mouth. How indecent. Thinking this, Natsui adamantly refused Krause's invitation. No way, I don't need any, This is a cross-cultural experience. What's the point of traveling if we don't do things that only can be done here? Krause kept chewing, ignoring the fact that even his lips were being colored bright red. Father likes these too. He must have ordered them a long ago, because he used to chew away at them in the mansion's terrace. Although it seems he stopped ever since you arrived. Look here, Father, the person you respect even more than me, look here, Father, the person you respect even more than me, enjoyed these all the time. Look, don't be shy, take some. No, stop it, dear. During travel, Krause had the innocence of a child. He didn't even conceal his jealousy of the respect Natsui normally gave Kinzo. Just being able to see that side of her husband made traveling all the way to another country worthwhile. Krause urged her even harder to bite it, but Natsui, undaunted, ran from place to place and finally yelled that he was being too pushy. Krause was miffed the whole bus ride. What a child to let a little thing like this get him down, Natsui thought exasperatedly. Then, a native tour guide in the bus took out one of those Eureka nuts and started explaining about it. It had apparently been a beloved luxury item in these parts since ancient times, similar to tobacco. Just like in Natsui's case, it was starting to be disliked by young people and was becoming obsolete. Furthermore, it was treated as a good luck charm in this area, and was known as a symbol for couples. She looked at her husband's face. He turned away abruptly, but it looked like his cheeks had gotten a little red. Yeah, what a sweet scene, what's the catch? Again, very typical Umineko, where they show you different sides of a character being like their most sweet and innocent, and then also them being their worst selves possible and committing murder. Like it's so double-sided and it really plays with your heartstrings. So, you then leaned on your husband and held his hand, did you? What the heck, you and your husband share a pretty pure love, don't you? Did you get all fired up? You know, like that night? Red-faced and avoiding Bito's eye, Natsui tried to hide her embarrassment by swallowing the pattis whole, chewing with her cheeks puffed out like a blowfish. Bito said yes, this is the best snack anyone could have with tea, and nodded several times, a broad smile on her face. However, that's only how it was when we were newlyweds. Right now I cannot even leave Rokujima. I'm a bird in a cage. Well, it's the same for me. I can keep dying, but I just can't escape Rokujima. I'm also a bird in a cage. I don't know much about you, and I won't pry. However, I do see that you face circumstances not to be taken lightly. I have no desire to act like the chief prisoner here. Let's be friendly as fellow birds in this cage. I've taken a liking to you. Really? Thank you. The instructions and orders you gave the servants for this family conference were superb. You took everything from where Kinzo would be and when and what he did and what he left behind, and put it all together splendidly without any contradictions. That detailed written plan of yours had the same beauty as high-level magic circle. To make it look like Kinzo actually existed and was living life his own way, she had written his schedule for the day down to the finest detail and made the servants follow it to the letter. When did he meet with whom, and where, and what did he leave them? When did he do what and where, and what changed? As a result, even though the relatives never saw Kinzo even once, they hadn't suspected in the slightest he hadn't been there. Ava and the rest truly believed Kinzo had just happened to be walking through the hall when he heard them talking about the inheritance and went into a rage. Everything had gone just as Natsui's plan had predicted, down to the finest detail. And the cooperation by the servants had also worked smoothly down to the finest detail. We had to stop the secret from getting out no matter the cost. That's why I double-checked the plan thoroughly. Your willpower and attention to detail summon success with certainty, as of which it seems you're in Lady Lambda Delta's camp. At your current level, as soon as you become self-aware of that as magic, you'll be worthy of calling yourself a witch apprentice. If you call something like that magic, then that would make Kumasawa the witch of feigned illnesses. It's only on busy days where she calls us to say she's taking the day off because of her bad back. Like every year's family conference, for example. Oh no, you've got Kumasawa completely wrong there. She's a witch of much, much higher level. If you knew what she really was, it'd shock you. Watching these two have their pleasant chat was another pair with steam rising from their black tea. However, the second pair was in a world that the first couldn't see, with golden roses bloomed. Ronov was kind enough to make some of that Dimbula tea, too. It felt as though Bito muttered something. For the first time, it felt as though something had gotten through to her. Surely she had taken interest in the black tea and felt like drinking it. Thinking this, Battler took Bito's cup in her hand, making her hold the cup. Bito's eyes trembled sadly and her fingers shook. Almost as though she couldn't even move her fingers as she wanted to, and was mourning the fact that she could no longer enjoy the tea she once loved by her own power. That's how she looked. So Battler put his hand on Bito's, grabbed hold of the teacup and lifted it to her lips. Then, though it was only a single mouthful, Bito sipped. The days they had been locked in a killing fest with red swords and blue wedges already seemed like the distant past. Now, not only was Bito unable to do that, it was even difficult for her to make her body do as she pleased. Even just drinking a mouthful of black tea like this was hard. And she does look very pretty with long hair. How is it? That rose aroma makes for a great black tea. Do you like it? Of course, Bito didn't respond. What happened to you? Is this another strategy? Are you pretending to be a slump so you can shock me later? If that's what you're after, the same trick won't work again, so give it a rest. I can't get fired up with you like this. Hey, is it about time for you to start laughing loudly, saying, "Caught you, dumbass," or something? Any kind of joke stops being funny if you drag it out too much, especially if it's a rehash. Laugh! Just like you're cackling over there like you drink with Aunt Natsui. Can't you at least grin? Never again. This child will never laugh again. Those sudden words were exceedingly cruel. How can you say that for sure? Don't you try to take Bito's right to laugh away from her. Oh, should I say it in red then? I shook my head furiously. Then, with an expression that didn't reveal her thoughts in the slightest, Bernkastel spoke while looking at Bito's face. And the word she used was completely incomprehensible to me. Congratulations. For what? Bito is like this as a result of your victory. What are you talking about? You said something interesting in a previous game. You said this would be torture, where you both torment each other. That was right. It's torture for Bito as well. And you, who won that torture game. That's why Bito's soul was killed. Why she became a doll-like corpse. Are you saying I did this to Bito? The battle ends when one of you loses the will to try and win. As far as the battle between you and Bito goes, that was already concluded in the previous game. Well, it probably happened without you noticing, though. In that case, why hasn't the game ended if I already won? Why is this game still continuing? The shackle attached to that girl's ankle. That's a rule Lambda made. Even if Beatrice tries to yield or gets discouraged or gives up, she isn't capable of stepping down from the game. That's the rule. Or maybe it's a curse. In the past, I supported you when it looked like you were gonna give in. Though you probably couldn't perceive it, I assisted you by giving you hints and making things go your way. That's why you're able to be here now. Remember? Remember how I saved you? Kirostyle stared at me. It's true I wasn't aware of it, but just maybe I was saved by her. In the same way, Lambda is supporting Bito, and this time Bito is on the verge of giving in. That's why Lambda's been giving her support this round to keep her from giving in. That's what the shackle is. By refusing to let her resign, she's rescued Bito within the game. Rescued her from what? Normally, there are only two ways for this game to end. Either one side will accept defeat and resign, or one side will win the game with a checkmate. Bito was about to collide with the first way. That's why Lambda crushed that chance and managed to just barely avoid losing. By the rules of this game, that's an impressive bit of support. So the only way this game can end now is if I win. At the very least, until I do win, this witch called Lambda Delta can probably try to buy time for Bito to make a comeback. But that'll just prolong Bito's suffering even more. Neither of us want that. Both Bito and I fought with all we had trying to win. The game repeated several times because we were both giving it everything we could muster. Then, that one time, we confronted each other head-on with all of our strength, and Bito acknowledged her loss. She said she wanted me to end this game and entrusted everything to me. So Kirostyl's words are the truth. She said it's my fault Bito's become a living corpse. That's true, but it's something both of us wanted. Our match has already been resolved. Even so, the game won't end. That's why Bito put her trust in me. She told me to win quickly and end this game. Now that the game's been resolved, letting it continue any further means endless torture for Bito. Nothing more than a nightmare. I've got to give her a perfect checkmate, end this game in the truest sense, and let her rest in peace. For that reason, I'll keep fighting. But by continuing this game, Bito's eternal torture will continue. It felt as though I could only let her sleep peacefully by slowly strangling her to death. I'm starting to feel like truth doesn't matter anymore. As long as Bito's satisfied, who cares what happens in the game? Bito resigned. I'll abandon the truth of the illusion of the witch and return home with my family. Is there anything wrong with that? If only Lambda Delta hadn't placed the curse of that shackle on her, this battle would already be over. That's why I found it detestable. This game, which I can't finish without tormenting Bito more, is detestable. What's this? Bito's starting to look like she's in pain every time you get closer to the truth. So you're suddenly going easy on her? Then go easy on her as much as you can. And why don't you just let Bito win while you're at it? Then your little sister can have a lonely, tragic future forced on her endlessly. That's not how it is. That's right. I have to return for Anja's sake as well. I know this isn't the time to start feeling compassion for Bito. In that case, make sure you kill her. Kill this witch without fail. Even though Bito was right there, Kirostyle spoke without holding back. Your goal is to kill this woman. In the last game, you said it at Bito's request. You said, I'll kill you. Yeah, that may be true, but that doesn't mean you get to complain about it. Did you know, when you tear one of your fingernails out, it's better to do it in one go. Pulling it out like you do, timidly, twisting and slow, hurts much, much more. What you're doing sounds more like torture to me. If you have any compassion, kill her all at once. That's how killing works. That's none of your business. I'm the one who gets to decide how to perform her last rites. You and that Lambda Delta witch have nothing to do with this. I'll kill her. I won't let anyone else do it. As long as you don't lose that willpower. I'm betting on you. Okay? Make sure you don't forget. Unless this game is resolved, you will never be released. You won't be allowed to abandon this game either. I get it. I know what Lambda's after. She wants to make you lose your will to fight just like Bito. To make you a pair of living dolls. To keep this world in perpetual equilibrium. You don't want that, do you? I wouldn't like it either. Why should I give a damn about what you want? Still, I won't throw this game away. I won't abandon my responsibility to fight against Bito. I'm glad our goals are the same. So, you'll be able to kill this child without any hesitation, right? That's right. I have no way of knowing whether those words eased her pain or hurt her, but I could tell by the dull tingling in my chest that I surely believed that I hurt her. I have no way of knowing what the silent Bito feels. If I think I've hurt her, Does that mean she's actually been hurt? And if I didn't think I'd hurt her, would that mean no one's gotten hurt because of me? So, about that Bito who's drinking tea over there with Natsui. You can handle that, right? Yeah, no problem. It's the same as it was with Kinzo. Beatrice doesn't exist. This is a fake illusion of a witch that Natsui created, since she believed she was borrowing a witch's power when she thought up a brilliant plan to overcome hardship. It only looks like they're drinking together, because Lambda Delta, who's the game master, and the one telling the story, interpreted it that way. If you could stare at the scene without a fragment of love for Natsui, you wouldn't see an illusion like that. That's why, with my eyes, all I can see is Natsui all alone, drinking her tea in silence. Without love, it cannot be seen. Because love is lacking, it cannot be seen. You're looking at a daydream Natsui's showing us. Beatrice doesn't exist here. Ugh. Ito mumbled softly. It was a small voice that made it sound like she was in pain. The thorn of Burncastell's truth had stabbed her in the chest. Right? Poor Natsui. Yeah, that's probably true. I think your theory's right. But don't say that in front of Bito. It doesn't matter when I say it. This is Bito's world we're in. Also, it's not like I'm protecting Bito, but it's still possible Aunt Natsui really is drinking tea with some unknown person X who calls himself Beatrice. The scene takes place a year before everything. The number of people on the island on this day has never been shown with the red truth. Sure, even Lambda hasn't said anything in red about the number of people on Rokunjima on this day. In that case, it's possible for Aunt Natsui to claim she really did drink tea with a woman calling herself Beatrice. Just like I can't deny your theory, you can't deny mine. That means you can't just say for sure whether Bito there is an illusion or not. Oh, is this the cat box theory? That might have worked on Bito, but it won't work on me. Why not? After all, Natsui is drinking tea all by herself right there. There was a violent sound of glass breaking, and the Bito who laughed happily at cracked jokes about Natsui's newlywed years was erased. A lonely wind blew, and the one person who remained on the bench drinking tea with a tired expression was Aunt Natsui, all by herself. Ugh. Right, Burns being so cruel. I think we'll find that Beatrice was actually rather nice compared to the other witches. Bito groaned. I could see clearly she was in anguish. Another illusion of the witch had been smashed, drawing Bito towards death. In short, this is what the battle to let Bito rest in peace is all about. A second ago, Burncastell likened our fight to the torture of tearing fingernails out. If I have to tear them out anyway, then my last bit of compassion towards Bito should be to minimize that pain. In other words, even if I want to minimize her pain, I still have to cause it. I have to accept that look of anguish on her face. At the same time, I realize what a merciless thing the Red Truth was. Right now, in this rose garden, there's no one except Aunt Natsui. In other words, there are no observers except for Aunt Natsui. So if that lone observer were to say she'd had some tea with Bito, no one should be able to refute that. If there's something no one can deny, doesn't that mean it's truth? Aunt Natsui's enjoying the roses and drinking tea together with Bito. How could anyone have the right to mercilessly trample that pleasant moment? The red truth is like a blade. In a battle with a witch, it's a blade that sometimes tears your theories apart, but sometimes it becomes a weapon you can fight back with. I know. So what? Don't use it without reason. A blade is a tool if you use it when you're supposed to, but it's a weapon if you use it out of malice. True enough, Aunt Natsui wasn't really drinking with a witch. However, saying that with the red truth probably has nothing to do with our game. Our game is the tale of October 1986. The 2 days of the crime give us more than enough time to injure each other with our red and blue blades glistening. This isn't about the illusion of the witch. It's about Aunt Natsui's privacy. How could anyone have the right to expose that? Do you want to acknowledge that a witch actually existed here and drank tea with Natsui? Weren't you trying to deny the existence of witches? That's right, if we're talking about our game, the 2-day period from October 4th to October 5th in 1986, I have no desire to question whether or not witches exist outside that game board. In the first place, the Devil's Proof argument makes it impossible to deny the existence of witches. And according to the rules of this game, saying something like what you just did in red is a forbidden move that leads to a stalemate. You can't deny the existence of witches, not even with the red truth. True. I never thought I'd hear you so glibly talking about witches existing. Not bad, Lambda. You've done a good job getting Balor stuck between his human culprit theory and the idea that witches existing wouldn't be so bad. She really excels at controlling human hearts. Looks like I'd better start helping you out even more. I really couldn't care less about you two. Disappear. This game is between Bito and me. We're gonna keep this game to ourselves. No way. What? After all, I'm enjoying this game too. Burn Castell disappeared, leaving only that unpleasant laugh behind. After that, all that remained was Natsui, sipping tea all alone. Bito, her hand still on the teacup as she stared blankly at the surface of the liquid. And me. Burn Castell and Lambda Delta. Virgilia called them your friends, but you really should choose your friends more carefully. Or wait, maybe they actually make a good match with an ill-natured person like you. Bito didn't answer. Balor took Bito's hand, made her hold the cup again, and brought it to her lips. Bito made a quiet sound in her throat and drank another gulp. Then Natsui's lonely tea time ended. That truth, which was Natsui's alone, and observed by no one else, had been defiled. In Natsui's world, surely, that tea party, which had been peaceful despite her annoyance at Bito for making fun of her too much, came to an end, and the two of them parted ways. However, in Natsui's exposed truth, she was always all alone. Natsui tottered away. On the bench, only a single person's cup remained. See, what a fascinating turn the story's taken already in this answer arc. And Balor's kind of like making the same journey as Ange, like learning to accept magic in specific circumstances. After dashing to her bedroom, Jessica answered the phone call that had been transferred there. Hello? Sorry to keep you waiting. Balor! What do you think you're doing not contacting us for 6 years? How's it going? Oh, really? How the hell I know? Hell, shut up. So that means you'll be coming to this year's family conference, right? I mean, it's been 6 whole years. Five businessmen in expensive suits were visiting in the parlor, giving Kraus and Natsui a progress report on their business. You're so emotionally invested? Yes, good. Spread out on the table were the blueprints and designs for a building, as well as documents related to expenditures and the like. So packed that even a teacup would have gotten in the way. Officially, they were here to give Kraus a progress report, but in actuality, Kraus had called them all on the way over to Rokkenjima, so that Natsui could hear from them directly. This was because Natsui needed to hear someone, other than her husband, explain what condition their businesses were in. In other words, even though another family conference without Kinza was approaching, their business had not yet earned them any money. After telling the guests to wait for a short while, Kraus took Natsui out into the hall and once again summarized the situation. In short, they say the work is proceeding even better than we imagined. This is where my personal connection to the governor really starts to pay off. By now, it's absolutely impossible for this catch to get away from us. To the contrary, it's growing so big that in one go, we'll be able to regain not just only the power of attorney, but everything we lost up to this point as well. Kraus spoke passionately. This made it seem all the more suspicious to Natsui. But this time at least she had to admit that everything really did seem to be going well. ACB, welcome to the stream, good to see ya. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for dropping by. Certainly, this business Kraus boasted of had expanded in scope over the last year. It was promising an even greater payoff than had been anticipated initially. Whether it would prove to be a winner or not, investors had gathered around it, and they were rapidly gaining funds. This must be what they meant when they said money summons money. It was probably the greatest success of Kraus's life so far. No, it probably would be his greatest success yet. That point was where Natsui's misgivings lay. True, it was certain, and as Kraus had said, they wouldn't lose this catch now. However, the fish on the line had gotten too big. We'll definitely be able to reel this fish in. There's no need to rush. It's such a success I wish I could show it to Father if he was still alive. Yes, I know. However, I believe you made me a promise last year. You said you were sure you could manage something within a year. A pained look rose to Kraus's face. They certainly had hooked a fat fish that guaranteed great success. However, it would require an appropriate amount of time to reel it in. Natsui pressed Kraus, asking if there was any way for them to make money before this year's family conference, but Kraus kept saying he needed just one more year. Kraus planned to use this unprecedented success to catapult them into further challenges in the future. Because of this, he didn't want to do anything that would raise suspicions by making it seem like they were rushing to get money. Certainly, fortune tends to turn against people who take it for granted even in the slightest. Anxious beggars never prosper. On many occasions before now, Kraus had gotten cold feet and sold off businesses that would have surely brought in a profit had he waited, and had in effect given away his winning picks. Natsui also knew this. She knew that guts were the thing her husband lacked the most. That's why she was unable to refuse Kraus when he said he wanted to prudently wait just one more year. Hahaha, how wonderful that things are going well. It would appear I'll have to sit around here as a ghost for a little longer. You don't look too disappointed. You're fated to be chewed to bits by demons the moment you leave this world. My apologies, Father. For one more year, you might not be granted peace. It is fine. Fear not, Natsui. I am no longer the Ushimi family head. The ghost of the study should obediently follow the current head's commands. I've taken a look at Kraus's charts and they aren't bad at all. Even from your perspective, Father? They're pretty good even from my perspective. Everyone is confident in victory, gathering together a significant quantity of magical power. As a result, that victory is growing ever deeper, involving more and more people and magic, beginning to create gold. A perfect embodiment of classic alchemy. If you earned even the Golden Witch's approval, that is very assuring. Rejoice, Natsui. This business of Kraus's will save the Ushimi family from its crisis without fail. Thank you very much. And if you would once again... Indeed. We'll have to overcome one more family conference, won't we? Yes. I think things went well last year, but I imagine some of the relatives will find it suspicious. I think this year's conference will be a critical time. During last year's family conference, you were correct to predict that the same thing might have to happen again. Even for those who aren't witches, preparing for the worst-case scenario is one of the basics for getting on in this world. So, what will you do this year? Just like last year, I will see to it that a high concentration of the servants who know Father's secret are there on the day of the conference. Some of the relatives may already have noticed that Father isn't around. A careless show might actually put us in more danger of exposure. Indeed. It is said that too much is as bad as too little. Then what will you do? Unlike last year, I think we'll go with the plan that has you staying inside your study until the end. That would be suitable. Barricades are straightforward and simple, a final trump card. No matter how strongly the toxin fills this mansion, as long as the closed room barrier remains around this room, it will be impossible to deny Kinzo's existence. I guarantee that myself. However, when forming a barricade, it is inevitable you will be surrounded. I know. Even so, I beg that both of you lend us your power just one more time. I cannot disobey the orders of the new head. Furthermore, a ghost cannot disobey the orders of the living. If you tell me not to leave this room, I will obey. Thank you very much. I am not satisfied. If you want me to lend you my power, I won't listen to a mere request. Yes, you are the family alchemist, so I won't ask you to help. I order you to help. Your magic is the one thing we can rely on. Use that power to create an illusion of father just one more time. Very well. I hear and obey. I find your confidence quite pleasing. From the shadows of the study, Balor watched the exchange between these three. I see. So we've made it to this year's family conference. Grandfather was in a bad mood, so he shut himself in his study and didn't appear in front of anyone. Natsui spoke boldly about how she would somehow overcome this year's crisis and protect the Ushimiya family's honor until the end, while Kinzo praised her, saying her plan looked promising. Vito also praised her, saying Natsui's dignified confidence was even more well-suited for the headship than Krause's. However, right now, the true number of people in this room was... The moment I thought that, no, just because I thought it, Vito grabbed her chest and moaned. Don't worry, this is still outside the game board, so I won't deny you or grandfather over there. I put my hand on Vito's as she tried to hold back the pain deep inside her chest. I've already told Bern Castell. The 2-day period of the 1986 family conference is all I need to deny the illusion of the witch. In the last game, you said in red that grandfather's dead at the start time for all games. However, you never mentioned whether grandfather was alive or dead before the start time for the games. In short, even if grandfather exists in this place right now, that doesn't create any contradictions. My hand touching her let off a faint blue light, which seeped into her chest. That light tenderly wrapped itself around the splinters in Vito's chest. And I also can't deny the existence of the Beatrice in this place. The number of people on this island outside the game board, in other words, before October 4th, 1986, has not yet been proclaimed in red. Therefore, there's nothing strange about Beatrice existing here. Ugh. Beatrice's expression softened slightly. My blue light slowly began to melt the red splinters to deny the illusion of the witch. Vito still wore the same sad expression, but she lifted her face and looked at me straight in the eye. Though she was silent, her eyes told me her pain had subsided. The feelings that showed in her eyes were gratitude for taking the pain away, and appreciation, or was it surprise, for leaving even a tiny bit of leeway for witches to exist. Unable to look directly at those pure eyes of hers, I reflexively averted my gaze. Don't get the wrong idea. I don't plan on accepting the existence of witches or surrendering. I just want to let that part slide and fight stoically so I could win this game against you. I have no desire to bully you outside the game board as well. Vito hung her head. I was still facing away from her. However, we waited wordlessly for a while, my hand still on hers. By now, no one believed that the sad-eyed woman was the same person as that prideful Vito. So I asked once more. Even though I said it aloud, it wasn't a question to her. I was asking myself. Just what in the world were you thinking? That's right. Even though this is Lambda's game, I have to find you here. I have to find what you thought, and what you were trying to do. Very soon, this game will also reach October 4th, 1986. The 5th game will finally begin. At this time, I'll reach the end of that journey. I'm not worried about the surface level stuff like murders and tricks. What did you, the Golden Witch Beatrice, think, and why did you do what you did? What were you hoping for? That's what I'm gonna find out. That's right, I already know how I could reach the end of that journey. It's been made clear to me since the very beginning. This time, I'll spin the chessboard around. I'll read this tale not from my side, but from yours. And this time, I'll understand you. I'll pick my way to your heart. I won't let you feel pain. Don't worry. I won't let those witches use you as a toy anymore. Ugh. Ito looked up at me again and gave a small nod. That's right. The position of Game Master must have been snatched up by Lambda Delta. However, as long as I continue this contest with the intent of fighting against Bito, our fight will continue no matter who controls the game board. Very soon, the curtain will rise on our game. At this year's family conference, we must conceal the Master's secret once again. Yes, I understand. I am a little doubtful if the same trick will work twice. Madam shares your concerns. Because of that, it was decided that this year, he will not leave the study even once. In other words, we'll make it seem like he's been shut away in his study the whole time. Yes, and the only ones allowed to enter the study are the three of us, the servants permitted to wear the one-winged eagle. Which means the three of us will have to perpetuate the lie about the Master. Correct. The relatives will probably question you about the Master's health and mood. Make sure you answer without hesitation, and see to it nothing is seen as suspicious. Yes, I understand. I'm sure you'll screw up right away, Ne-san. Maybe it's better to say you have a cold or something so you can skip that day. That's mean. Cannon wasn't just making fun of her. He only wanted to release Shannon from the burden of working on the most serious of days. Genji-sama, is it really necessary for Shannon to be on duty? We can manage things well enough without her. That I cannot do. Madam gave strict orders that the three of us will be scheduled to work on that day. Yes, I am prepared to perform my duties successfully. Don't screw up. I won't. Hey, Narek! Welcome to the stream! Thank you so much for the raid. Hello, everyone. Thanks for dropping by. Let's write the shout out. Please go check out Narek when you get a chance. Very cool VTuber. I hope you had a good stream. Please go check him out. What were you playing today? Hope you had a good time. Welcome, I'm Kiro. I am a frog-loving martial artist. We are playing Umineko When They Cry Answers Arc. Basically, it's a visual novel with a murder mystery and some fantasy elements. Hope you enjoy your stay here and feel free to lurk and relax. You must be tired after a long stream. Thank you, thank you. Shannon grew sullen and Cannon shrugged. Oh, Yagada, thank you so much for following me. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for being a froggy friend. Then Genji told them that they weren't taking this seriously enough. Cannon, the master we serve has already passed away. However, until he has truly passed on, we will continue to serve. That study is not empty. The master is still in there, hard at work on his usual research. Make sure you take that to heart. Hey, Earl Elemental, welcome to the stream. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, I'm doing well, Narek. Thank you so much again. Did you have a good time? What were you playing? Oh, thanks for being a froggy friend as well. Welcome, welcome. You are welcome here. Thanks for calling Kirby. Yes, Genji-sama. Oh, thanks for the stretch too. I could use a stretch. You too, sit up straight in your seat. Father has already passed away? That's insane. Settle down. It's only a possibility. It's well known that Takeda Shingen said in his will that his death was to be kept secret for 3 years. Know about that? It was fun. You played Fate Grand Order and then switched to Guilty Gear Strive. Ooh, nice. Love Guilty Gear. Oh, you like my model, Earl? Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Is that how it went? My Japanese history isn't so great. At the time, Takeda was in the middle of a war with Oda and Tokugawa. If people learned about his death at a time like that, it'd probably have a bad impact on the war. Because of that, he left a will saying his death should be kept hidden for 3 years. Hideyoshi did the same thing, right? He totally suppressed information about the death of his master, Oda Nobunaga, so the enemy wouldn't find out. Quickly made peace with Mori and defeated Akechi in the Battle of Yamazaki. Wow, I actually recognize all this because I played Basara. On the other hand, Shibata Katsui failed at this. The enemy, Usugi, learned of Nobuyuki's death, so Shibata had to deal with an unexpected counterattack and get slowed down. That's why later on he suffered a great loss against Hideyoshi in the fight for succession. Hideyoshi, who had a strong fascination with the commanders of the Sengoku period, would always show off his knowledge when he got the chance. Wincing slightly, Ava made him get back to his point. Aru, welcome to the stream, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you're doing well. So basically, the whole time since last year's family conference, I felt as though something was strange. You mean the time when Rudolph and I were talking about the inheritance, and Father overheard us from the hall? That's just it. Natsumi-san and the servants kept saying Father was here or there, and he seemed to be in a bad mood. But not a single one of us relatives saw Father, right? If what you're thinking is right, what does that mean? Does it mean Nissan's trying to keep all the inheritance for himself? Of course, hiding someone's death is a very dangerous thing to do. And all the things considered, I'm not sure Kraus-sama would be willing to do it just to have the inheritance to himself. But it is possible. Well, it's true that Nissan has always been greedy. He always used to take things that were meant for all the siblings, keeping them all for himself. Kraus-san is supposed to be the richest of the siblings. Kraus-san scheming to keep the inheritance all to himself, to the point of accepting the risk of hiding Father's death. Sounds a tad unbelievable to me. Even so, last year's family conference was so strange I couldn't help but wonder. Ava and the others were painfully aware of how reckless it would be to try and see Kinzo when he was in a bad mood. So during last year's family conference, once they heard about Kinzo getting into a terrible mood, they never made an attempt to contact him. That was why to this very day they haven't found it suspicious that Kinzo never appeared. It certainly is worth suspecting, but I wonder if Nissan really would do something as appalling as hiding Father's death. For all his pride, that man has a coward's side to him. Would he really make such a once-in-a-lifetime bet? Either way, it'd probably be a good idea to make sure we get a chance to meet with Father during this year's conference. The rumors are really bad. Sounds like Aniki's business is failing even worse than we'd imagined. Like he's taken massive losses and he's giving it all he's got to try and cover it up. That'll make it very difficult to borrow money from him. Yeah, I could cry. Wouldn't being in financial stress also weaken Kraus-sama's position in certain ways? Weaken his position? Well, investors tend to have a keen eye. If they hear that he's actually low on funds, they won't want to have anything to do with him. I guess trust is the most important part of that business. Kyrie smiled thinly. Rudolph was taken aback by that smile. He figured that his plan, which involved raising money to get him out of his current mess by borrowing from the affluent Kraus, would all come to nothing now that he knew Kraus himself was in financial trouble. Confidence in Kraus-san's abilities might be a requirement for his own business in the future, but it isn't necessary for our future. Are you suggesting that I blackmail him? I wouldn't want to if it were me. For one blood sibling to take another down is no laughing matter. Rudolph felt a shiver go up his spine at Kirio's cold smile. At times, Kirio was able to throw away all compassion and think in an extremely ruthless manner. Whenever he saw that, Rudolph knew he'd never like to have her as an enemy. I'd rather not threaten Oni-san if we have any other way to get money. If there were another way, we wouldn't be worrying. Don't you think it's a bit pathetic to waste time worrying about a problem when you have no other options? Rudolph stopped talking, folded his arms and lowered his gaze. He still felt some of the terror he'd experienced thanks to Kraus's violence when they were young. And now that same Kraus was the one he needed to threaten. Rudolph would be fighting against his childhood trauma. So, to give her husband a little push, Kyrie smiled reassuringly, and perhaps coldly. I've never been a fan of doing work based on trust. It takes hard work to build up trust, but only instant to lose it. There's no less profitable investment. You're right. All the trust in the world isn't a good banknote. Even though Kraus-san has been taking on massive losses, he ought to be capable of gathering enough money to buy us some time. Of course, he'd probably be forced to cash in all the trust he's built up so far. This is gonna get ugly. Hey, Sai, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, don't be fooled by Kirie here. I mean, we've seen what her sister's capable of. We'll have to prepare sufficiently. We haven't been given any time or room for failure. Isn't that right? Among my Kyoto friends, I know a few who are talented at this sort of investigation. I'd rather not be indebted to people like that, but do you want to try meeting them? You can't expect people like that to offer you receipts, but I'm sure they'll dig up something that makes that worth the investment. Yes? Maria's doing well too. That's none of your business. Thank you. Well, thanks for the stretch, Armon. I appreciate it. Huh? Well, I'll have to look at my schedule. Rosa was talking to Rudolph over the phone. Rosa rarely received calls from her older siblings, so she braced herself for something serious. Well, truth is, I want to have a little talk about the next family conference. Truth is, I want to have a little talk about the next family conference without Aniki. Between you, me, and Eva Nesan, sounds like a headache. I can't go into details over the phone, but I think you'll find it's worth listening to. Something good? Of course, Aniki's all in for it. Nesan is... All we want is your approval. We aren't going to ask you for money or anything like that. The most important thing is the three of us stick together. Got it? Rosa let out a sigh. She did so because in the past, when Rudolph and Ava got into a fight with Kraus, they always used to talk to her like this right before dragging her into it. First tell me, I stand to gain something too, yes? Yup. The three of us will each grab 200 million out of this. If all goes well, we might be able to squeeze out more. That should be enough to handle your debt, right? And when can we expect to grab this by? Of course, it'll be within a year. I need it. Aniki needs it. And you need it too, Rosa. All three of our problems will be settled. So the chances of success are good enough that Nesan's agreed to it. Now do you want to hear? I know it's a bit sudden, but let's meet next Sunday, 19 o'clock at the coffee shop you like in Ginja. That's the only time Aniki's schedule and mine match. Any problems? If we're talking 200 million, I'll have no choice but to listen. Then let's meet at 7 o'clock p.m. next Sunday at Leopold's. And Maria-chan, you can bring her too if you want. Don't talk about money in front of that child. She set the receiver down with a clunk a little violently. Apparently, either Ava or Rudolph had gotten a hold of one of Kraus's weak points. They would probably threaten him with that at the next family conference and force him to pay up. Even before hearing the details, she knew full well it would be nothing good. Even so, this might be her once-in-a-lifetime chance to pay back her large debts. Rosa took a notebook out of her handbag and started to mark the day she'd be meeting with Rudolph and Ava. Then she frowned and smacked herself hard in the forehead. Because written there was DZL with Maria, something she had planned to do with her daughter. Maria was in her room, playing around excitedly with Sakataro and the others. That was because she was going to go to that recently built amusement park, Disneyland, and the following Sunday. Looking at the clock, Rosa saw that it was just past 9 o'clock at night. Maria was breaking the lights out rule. After covering her face and agonizing for a while, Rosa stood up and stomped over to Maria's room. The room would probably be a mess as well. At least tonight, that was convenient. As she stood outside the door to Maria's room, listening to the happy laughter seeping through, Rosa's face twisted in anguish once again as she looked at the floor. Then when she raised her head again, her brows furrowed and her face became an ugly expression of anger. I guess you can all know what's coming up next for Maria. The weather wasn't that great. According to the weekend forecast, a certain tropical cyclone would likely grow into a large typhoon. If unhappy premonitions tend to be right, this year's family conference will probably take place in absolutely horrible weather. No, I wish a typhoon large enough to stop all boat travel would seal Rokkenjima away forever. If that happened, I'd be able to hide Kinzo's death as long as I wanted. If only the typhoon would keep them at bay forever. Natsui let out a deep sigh. Just doing that made her headache throb. As the day of the family conference approached, the intensity of her headache just kept on increasing. At that time, the phone rang. Natsui turned the TV off and picked up the receiver. Hello? I apologize for calling during your rest. It's Genji. Is something the matter? There's a phone call for you from the external line. However, they will not state their name. They aren't saying their name. Yes. The person in question said you would know when you spoke with them. What should be done? It might be a prank. What did they sound like? I believe it was a young man. Any idea who it might be? A young man? Natsui didn't have a clue who that might be. In the first place, there was no one among her acquaintances who would do something as rude as refusing to state their name. And on top of that, a young man. As a wife, she must avoid any contact that might be considered suspicious with anyone other than her husband, much less a young man. As soon as she thought this, the phone call suddenly seemed like something dirty. But despite that, she also wanted to know what they wanted to tell her. Could it be some kind of trouble related to Krause's business? What if there was some particular reason they need to talk to Krause's wife instead of Krause directly? No matter what it is, it's my duty as a wife to listen and report to Krause. If it's something bizarre threat, I just have to firmly refuse and inform Krause I received such a phone call. If it's something offensive, I just have to tell Genji to never send me anonymous calls again. As Natsui thought this, just as Genji was suggesting that he hang up on the man as though that's what she'd naturally choose, she told him to connect her to this person. She then set the receiver down. After a short while, the phone rang again. Hello? This wasn't the internal line. It was the external phone line, which Genji had redirected to her. So it should already have been connected directly with the mysterious man. However, the person on the other end didn't respond. Not liking this at all, Natsui spoke one more time, sounding displeased. Hello? Who is this? Tell me your name. She heard something that sounded like a sigh. She gulped reflexively. After remaining silent for a little longer, the man finally answered. It's been a long time, huh? That was the first time the man had spoken. Just how long has it been? How many years? What are you talking about? Who are you? The voice certainly did sound like a young man's, but it's hard to learn much about someone just by their voice over the phone. It sounded like a young man, but it might actually be a middle school-aged boy, or a man in his prime who still had a youngish voice. No wait, it might be too soon to be sure this is even male. However, one thing was certain. Natsui could think of no one who would speak to her in an overly familiar manner like this. It'd be easy for me to tell you my name, but that would make me very sad. I don't know what you're talking about. Who are you? And what business do you have with me? If you can't tell me that, I'm not interested. I'm hanging up. What I want is for you to remember. And what is it you're telling me to remember? I don't know you, so I have nothing to remember. Please do not say that. I am your child, am I not? What did you say? What are you talking about? Do not say things that will make me so sad, mother. That unsettling word thrust itself mercilessly into the depths of Natsui's heart and started churning it about. In her entire life, Natsui had never been told something so unsettling. In her bewilderment, Natsui felt her heart beat so loudly it felt like it would explode. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what you're planning, but I'm hanging up. I came back for revenge. Revenge for your crime of 19 years ago. Natsui's mind went blank, and from beyond the wind howling outside the window, she most certainly heard the roar of the sea from that day. So, you actually do remember, do you not? I told you, I don't know what you're talking about. Never call here again. I have not forgotten how you treated me 19 years ago. To curse you, I still call you mother despite that. No, because of that. The family conference will be here very soon, right? I am your son, mother. I will come on the day of the conference. After 19 years, so that I can have my revenge on you. Breathing so hard her shoulders heaved, Natsui slammed the receiver down and hung up. Then she hit the phone violently, knocking the receiver off, so that no more calls would come through it. I can hear the roar of the sea. That voice I hear from beyond the howling wind is certainly... Even if I cover my ears, the headache won't. Completely pale, Natsui kept shivering as though cold. Lambda, are you there? Yes, I'm here. I'm anywhere you want me to be, Burn. Then crawl into the cupboard under the kitchen floor. Or in a jar of rice bran paste if you like. Oh, you're gonna dip me in bean paste and bite into me? But then I'd rather you dip me in honey. In return, I'll cook you in sugar water. At least make it sweet soy sauce with sweet sake. So what's up? You gonna make me repeat something? That's right. Is Natsui's phone conversation here real? Lambda Delta grinned unpleasantly as though sizing Burn could still up. She was probably trying to tease Burn for making that demand. You refuse to repeat it? Well now, should I refuse, or should I respond? As the game master, that's up to me to decide, and I get to make that decision anytime I want. Unless I state in blue, you aren't obligated to respond. That's it. For now, you're stuck wondering about Natsui's secret of 19 years ago, okay? Make sure you're sitting on the edge of your seat. Of course, this fishy telephone call happened before October 4th, 1986. This is still before the start time of the game, so there's basically no need to question whether it's true or false. Since you, the game master, went out of your way to show me this, I'll take it as a preparatory move for something else. It might be a trick, but at least I'll keep this move of yours in my memory. So, you'll leave without turning the card over. Ow, what? Direct attack. After suddenly being conked on the head, Lambda Delta was bewildered. And perhaps this incomprehensible exchange was funny to her, because she quickly went back to giggling. Are you done preparing the game board now? Yeah, that's right. Now I'll finally move on to the game. On to October 4th, 1986. I wonder what number October 4th, 1986 this is. The Endless Switch, huh? Beatrice. She truly is a frightening child. Any moves from your side yet, Burn? No. If you've refused to repeat what I asked, then I'm done. Turn end, right? Untap, upkeep, draw. Come, October 4th, 1986. October 4th, 1986, the first day. Okay, so I originally was planning on ending the stream here, but I still have like an extra hour, so... But I think like this is a good stopping point. But let me just... I don't want to double check what happens in the next section and how long it is, just to make a judgment. I think the next section's only about half an hour long, but I'm not sure if I want to break up the flow. Yeah, I think that was a Magic the Gathering reference. Lambda Delta especially likes to make a lot of references to other pop culture. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just having a quick glance at the next section. Okay, I'm gonna do one more chapter here. This rose garden really is a masterpiece. It's gotten even more awesome than it was 6 years ago. You're so lucky to have this as your yard. Are you kidding? For me, it just makes it a longer walk to the harbor, and that's a real pain. Yeah, extended Kiro time. How do I check what's coming up? I made some notes based on... There is an Umineko playthrough on YouTube where the person just goes through the whole thing without, like, just using the built-in voiceovers of the game. And they separate it so each video is one of the chapter breaks. You could tell the chapter break because that's when the border appears and you see the Umineko logo in the corner. So I'm using that. I used to use the Umineko wiki to judge how long each section was, but unfortunately the wiki is not quite up to date for episodes 5 and beyond for chapter summaries and lengths. So that's why I'm using the YouTube instead. But this next section is interesting, and I think it's worth putting into this video. That's a pretty luxurious worry. Getting to say hi to the roses every morning must be awesome. You must get late after saying hi to so many roses. Shame about Ange, though. I hear her stomach gets upset easily, right? Apparently, it's probably her intestines that are weak. She's almost always got the runs. You shouldn't say something like that about a lady. Sorry about that. Yeah, I forgot. Nothing comes out of a girl's butt but marshmallows, right? So Ange got sick and the marshmallows turned into syrup. Paddler! Okay, that's really way over the line. George and Jessica slammed a knee and fist into either side of Badler's gut. Whack. Smack. Thud. The smack thud was probably the sound made when his knees hit the ground as he fell over. Normally, Badler possessed the good sense you'd expect of an 18-year-old man. However, it seemed this reunion brought him back to his mental age he'd been 6 years ago. And bit by bit, Jessica and George realized they were also returning to the way they'd been back then. Natsui gazed at this charming chat through an open window in the hall. Madam, Kraus-sama is searching for you. I'll go in just a bit. It isn't even lunchtime yet and I'm already tired. Just a few moments ago, the sparks had already started flying between them and Ava's group. The others had pounded on Kraus and Natsui over and over to get Kinzo out of his study. Apparently they hadn't been fully tricked at last year's family conference after all. There are no problems with father, right? Correct. Leave it to me. Shannon and Cannon are also fully prepared to handle today's arrangements. Kumasawa is a good liar, so I'm not worried about her, but I am a little concerned about Dr. Nanjo. I get the feeling he's bad at hiding things. Leave that to me. I intend to support Dr. Nanjo from nearby as much as possible. It's so reassuring to have you there. It truly does help a lot. Without your strength, we wouldn't be able to succeed. I am honored by your words. Don't worry. The closed room barrier in the study is perfect. As long as the barrier remains unbroken, no one will be able to expose Kinzo's secret. Yes, I understand. Still, you heard that conversation in the parlor just now, didn't you? Indeed. It seems some considerable suspicions were aroused last year. The terrible toxin has accumulated and is being spread all around. It seems this year's conference really will be crucial. We might be able to overcome this year somehow, but there is such a thing as pushing our luck. It's probably best to assume that next year won't be manageable. With this much of the magic-resisting toxin filling up the place, it will probably be difficult to preserve Lord Goldsmith's magic for yet another family conference. Who are you? Oh, no need to be surprised. This man serves as my head furniture. Greetings, Madam Natsui. My name is Ronov. It is a pleasure to meet you. This man's reliable. He's also helping to protect the closed room barrier. Is that so? I am Ushimiya Natsui. I thank you for your cooperation. Of course, madam. I will be aiding you from the magic world. Please rely on me. In that case, I guess I'll introduce myself next. Hi, Rish. Long time no see. Ah, Gop. I'm glad to see you're here as well. Well, I only came to have some fun. If you need an extra hand, let me know. Nice to meet you, madam. This is the first time I said hello, but I'm always right by anyone's side. Gop here is quite the prankster. Remember that headache medicine you dropped on the floor of your room and lost as you were getting dressed? Gap was the one behind that. Whenever you set something down small somewhere but can't find it later, it's always a good idea to suspect it's one of her pranks. Long ago, she used to tease me all the time. Is that so? In any event, this is Ushimiya Mansion. As long as you are here, you will obey us. You understand, correct? Of course. We understand. Think of me as Genji of the magic world and give me orders whenever you wish. And even I know how a guest is supposed to act. I won't let that landlord lose face. You can count on Ronov and Gap. However, the magic world and the human world are two different sides of the same coin. I understand. Of course, I will do all I can in the human world. Let's work together and protect Father's secret. Indeed. Yes, if your socks go missing, it's probably Gap. This happens every time. Looks like we won't get anywhere until the next day. Well sure, October 4th is like prep turn for me. If you don't feel like doing anything, why don't you just sit around until October 5th? I'll call you after the first 6 die. Of course, that was an incredibly irritating way to put it. The fight won't start until the crime occurs. However, waiting for the crimes to start would mean turning a blind eye towards the murders of the first Twilight. In other words, it would be the same as being content with the fact that 6 people would die. Did you know? They say that in chess, the player who moves first is twice as likely to win. Although that can change as the tactics of the match progress. Don't they say the second player has a much better chance at a draw? Even I know the phrase, the first to strike wins. So what are you trying to say? This is why you're so incompetent. Seriously, are you listening, Badler? There do exist puzzles that can be solved even on October 4th. Know which one I mean? You don't mean... No, but... Well, watch and see, Badler the incompetent. I have a general idea what these witches are talking about. I've tried solving it several times myself in the past, but I still haven't found anything resembling an answer. On the contrary, I still can't understand why that puzzle exists. That's right, the reason it exists. Why did Bito prepare a puzzle like this in the first place? We all discussed it together from time to time in past games. However, I started to avoid thinking about it, under the assumption there's no point in trying to solve a riddle that can't be solved. This time I should change my viewpoint. I shouldn't just focus on the surface level stuff, like the truth of the riddle and how to solve it. What's more important is why that riddle was set up in the first place and displayed for us to see. That's what I should be thinking about. And the one proposing that riddle is Beatrice. Even if I can't solve it, I should be able to try and figure out what Beato was thinking when she showed it to us. So, I've said before, but Umineko is heavily influenced by Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which takes place on an island, everyone's stranded by a storm, and there's like a poem, or like a nursery rhyme on the wall that kind of predicts all the characters' deaths in order. That's why they kind of created this epitaph in this game, to kind of mirror that. Although you'll see, I mean, we've already kind of seen the epitaph is very different in many ways, but it is a reference. It is deliberately done that way. Okay, this time I'm spinning the chessboard around. The witches keep calling me incompetent. Let them laugh. They aren't my enemies. I'm continuing our match. Bito. Oh, looks like it's finally started raining. Dang. Wish the only downpour was one inside my heart. The people in the parlor noticed the raindrops that were starting to drip down the window. Now we have nowhere to run until the family conference ends. The same thing goes for Nissan. I won't let them escape, you can be sure of that. The cards we're holding aren't bad. Nissan's just bluffing. I'll make certain he surrenders. Well, there's more to a deal than making your opponent lose. You gotta have a pitfall ready, praise them a bit, and convince them to stand on the top of it of their own accord. Hideyoshi-san's right. We pressed them a bit too hard last time, Eva-ne-san. That was perfectly reasonable considering it's Nissan we're dealing with. Looks like Rose has fallen asleep. She was complaining about how early she woke up this morning. Well, I guess there's nothing wrong with taking a nap. There's a chance we might be forced to spend all night on this. Getting a nap now is probably a smart idea. Out of consideration for Rosa, who'd fallen asleep on the sofa, the others quietly left the parlor. Unaware of this, Rosa slept. After telling Maria to just stay where she was after that tantrum over not being able to find her rose, Rosa slept, unaware that the rain had started to fall. The rain poured down as though it had been saving up for this moment. Of course, Maria noticed the rain had started falling and was soaking her to the bone. However, that just made her more stubborn. Unable to find the poor, slightly unhealthy rose that she herself had marked, she just couldn't stand having that search be interrupted by something like the rain. So the more the rain fell on Maria, the more stubborn she grew. As she wandered through the rose beds. As she did, from behind Maria's back came a patter, patter. The sound of approaching footsteps. Then the footsteps landed in a puddle, making a small splashing sound, and Maria finally heard. However, even the slight distraction of the sound irritated her, and Maria ignored it. Hello? Huh? Maria turned around, bewildered. After all, that voice was one she didn't recognize at all. On this sealed-off Rokonjima, that voice belonged to no person she knew. Oh, I got an achievement called You Are Not Alone. Kraus-sama, madam, I was looking for you. Something important has come up. Kraus and Natsu have been privately discussing what should be done next in a deserted corridor on the 3rd floor. Genji had searched everywhere for them. What is it? It must be something urgent more than a few sheets getting soaked in the rain. What is it? Has some sort of blunder been made? A short while ago, someone arrived at the mansion, claiming to have drifted here after an accident at sea. Kraus and Natsu couldn't help but go wide-eyed and stare at each other. This was the first time they've ever heard of someone coming to this island uninvited. Someone drifted here? Is that true? The poor thing. Treat this person politely, like a guest. What are they doing now? Dr. Nanjo is performing an examination. He hasn't finished yet, but from what I could tell by looking, the drifters seemed tired but uninjured. Thank goodness. Thank goodness, Natsu and I are having an important conversation right now. When it's over, we will go to check on this person. Please tell this drifter that we want them to feel at home. Certainly. When Genji bowed deeply and started to leave, Natsu called him to a stop. Genji stopped walking and Natsu jogged up to him. Genji, is this drifter a man? No. She is a young woman about the same age as Milady. A woman? I see. Very well, back to your work. The parlor of the mansion was bustling. The adults gathered, worrying about the health of this sudden guest. Well, if she was able to walk all the way to the Rose Garden by herself, her life probably isn't in danger. It always helps to be prepared. It's probably all thanks to the life jacket. Without that, she might have drowned. What kind of girl was she? Older or younger than George? Or Jessica? She was younger than Jessica. She wore a life jacket and swimsuit. It looked like she was all tired out. If she was washed up somewhere near the harbor, that must have been a rare bit of luck amid disaster. It would have been terrible if she'd landed on the opposite side of the island. Still, you have to feel sorry for her. With this weather, the boats won't be coming. I imagine she'll also be stuck on this island all day tomorrow. At that moment, the door clunked open, and everyone looked in that direction. Would anyone like some tea? It was Goda and Cannon, with the latter pushing a serving cart laden with a tea set. Goda understood well that doing a little extra at times like this would earn him points. The relatives, hungry for information, crowded around Goda. He ordered Cannon to serve the tea and became the sole object of the relatives' attention. Goda-san, how's that kid doing? Does it look like she's okay? Well, I don't know about that. But there's no need to worry. Dr. Nanjo's giving his full attention to taking care of her, and Kumasawa and Shannon are with him. Please have no fears. Why not relax with some black tea for now? Come, Cannon-san. Quickly, quickly, serve it. Serve it. Cannon knew this tea was just Goda's way of earning points, so he lined the cups with a slightly sullen air. I'll help too. It's okay. You can just wait there, Maria-sama. I want to serve tea too. Didn't you talk with Dr. Nanjo? Did he say anything? Yes, when I met him a short while ago, he said there weren't any serious external wounds. From what I could tell at a glance. And just as Goda had successfully captured the gazes of all present, and was about to start talking knowledgeably about the subject, Nanjo returned. Of course, Nanjo instantly became the center of attention. Cannon turned his back on Goda, who seemed downhearted. Dr. Nanjo, how is her condition? Does it look like she'll be okay? Not to worry, everyone. She is fine. She had no injuries at all. She seems to be quite worn out, but there shouldn't be anything to worry about tonight, as long as she doesn't develop a fever. That's good to hear. We're lucky enough to have a doctor, but this is no hospital. Everyone was relieved to hear the girl was in good health. When Nanjo gave the more detailed results of his examination, concluding by saying that she was young and should therefore be fine, everyone who no longer fell under this description nodded in assent. Boats really are scary. Fall. Balor was right. Maria-chan, let's not tell Balor about this. Oh, madam, Kraus-sama. Goda, who had lost his nerve and was handing out cups, called out in an excessively loud voice. Apparently he was that desperate to get everyone's attention. How is the guest? Yes, sir. Her condition is not serious. I see, that's great. Where is she now? I believe Kumasawa-san and Shannon-san were guiding her to the bath. They said they would get her some clothes afterwards. In that case, they'll probably arrive here soon. Everyone, this may be the day of the family conference, but we have a guest brought here by an unfortunate accident. She wasn't invited, but I want you all to welcome her. Who could disagree with that? I'm all for it. Same here. Didn't Mom always tell us to be nice to girls? Maybe, but you didn't need to make that your life's motto. It's probably best if we call George and the rest over here too. Let's all greet her together. But wouldn't that just make her more uncomfortable? Ava stood up and made a phone call to the guest house. At that moment, they heard the sound of a knock, followed by Genji's voice. It is Genji. The guest has arrived. At those words, everyone fell silent, and the people who had been sitting stood up straight. Genji came in first, opening the door slowly. Then moved off to the side, bowing deeply and urging the guest forwards. The guest had Shannon and Kumasawa following by her side. And even after seeing the large number of relatives waiting for her in the parlor, she didn't seem overawed in the slightest. Just a single point showed that this girl possessed a dignity appropriate for guests invited in by the Ushimiya family. Furudo-san, allow me to introduce you. This is the representative of the Ushimiya family head, Ushimiya Kraus. She fell off a boat? I guess you're just gonna have to listen to her story. It'll make sense in a second. Welcome to Rokujima. Though you arrived due to an accident, you are a guest of the family. We welcome you. Please make yourself at home and relax however you please. Thank you very much. Allow me to introduce myself. I am called Furudo Erika. My deepest apologies for disturbing you members of the Ushimiya family like this. I'm truly grateful for the warm welcome I've received, despite my status as an uninvited guest. This was greeted by an impressed sigh arising equally from all corners of the room. The clothes she had been lent were probably Jessica's formal wear from long ago, but the composure of her introduction didn't shame those clothes in the slightest. I always forget that these clothes supposedly originally belonged to Jessica, because I cannot picture even a young Jessica wearing this. The girl's name was Furudo Erika. She looked slightly younger than Balor and Jessica, but her composure and mannerisms were beyond what anyone would have expected from a high schooler, almost as though she was a well-to-do family's daughter. Wait a second. Who the heck is this? With an incompetent like you as the main character piece, the game wouldn't go anywhere. That's why I've placed myself there as a piece. Well, it's just a bit of a bonus. Even in a closed circle, it'd get boring to see the same crew every single time, right? Quit messing around! This piece doesn't exist on Bito's game board. Bito and I won't acknowledge it. This is Bito's game board, right? If Bito refuses, then I'll consider it. What do you say, Bito? Bito was unable to answer. Lambda Delta grinned triumphantly. Wanna try complaining about the rules and stepping down from the game? Isn't that a favorite move of you mystery people? If there's even a tiny element that goes against your expectations, you throw a tantrum and totally stop thinking. Ugh. Don't worry. I'll make a detective proclamation regarding this piece. A detective proclamation? I proclaim that Fruto Erica is the detective. The detective isn't a culprit. No proof is needed to show this. In short, there's absolutely no need to suspect this girl. Even if she appears as a human piece from now on, you can build theories the same as you always did, get it? That's Nox's 7th, right? It is forbidden for the detective to be the culprit. There was an exception clause in the original, but for this game, the detective isn't a culprit has been proclaimed in red, so you don't need to consider the exception. I hate word games, so I'll say it in red too. Fruto Erica is not the culprit. Repeat it. Fruto Erica had no influence on any of Bito's games before now. Sure, no prob. Fruto Erica had no influence on any of Bito's games before now. She's nothing more than an extra character who appears for the first time this round. She does not exist in the worlds before this one, nor does she influence them. So this is fascinating, and I mean, I don't want to say too much, but I've mentioned before that Kirostyle and Lambda Delta are characters that kind of exist within, like, they primarily exist in Umineko, but they have references to them in other When They Cry series. Even though they were only introduced in Umineko, which came after Higurashi, it's implied that some of the events in Higurashi were influenced by Kirostyle and Lambda Delta. So they share similarities with characters from Higurashi. So Erica here, as an avatar of Kirostyle, shares some similarities with characters from Higurashi. In fact, Kirostyle is similar to a character from Higurashi named Frederica Kirostyle. And so Frederica is where they get the name Fruto Erica from. It's kind of funny, Fruto Erica is basically Burn's self-insert Mary Sue character. She's intentionally written as a Mary Sue character. Just like as if someone was writing an Umineko fanfic of their own, and was like, you know what, I'm gonna add in my own character. You know what, she came in from a shipwreck, and got washed up, and got involved in the murders. That is exactly what they're trying to do here, and it's intentional. So what does this do to the number of people on the island right now? Of course, it's +1 from the previous number, but don't worry. Fruto Erica only increases it by 1 person. Besides her, the number of people on the island is exactly the same as it was in the previous games. At that time, the sound of people dashing down a corridor could be heard. It was Battler George and Jessica, who'd come from the guest house after being called here by Ava. They immediately spotted a guest they didn't recognize, and their eyes went wide. Whoa, who are you? A guest. She came by falling. Huh? Fall. Genji-san, who is this person? This is the guest, Fruto Erica-sama. Fruto-sama, this is the daughter of the family, Jessica-sama, along with her cousins, George-sama and Badler-sama. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Ushimiya Jessica. Hello, my name is Fruto Erica. I am very pleased to meet you. Though Badler, George, and Jessica didn't have a clue what was going on and were utterly bewildered, they each introduced themselves. Isn't that convenient? This way the number of people is clear. The people in the guest house have joined up with the rest, and now all the pieces except for Kinzo, all of the humans, have gathered in the parlor. Looks like it. In other words, the number of people in this parlor is now equal to the total number of people on this island. There were supposedly 18 people on the island, but since Grandfather's actually dead, that became 17, and now 1 piece of Kirostyle has been added. The number of humans on this island is returned to 18. I glanced around at the humans in the parlor. The guest, Furuto Erika. And behind her, Kumasawa-san and Shannon-chan. Off to the side was Genji-san. Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsu were welcoming the guest. Goda-san immediately started showing off, and Kanen-kun was being unsociable, wearing his usual blank expression. There was Dad and Kirie-san, Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi, Aunt Rosa, and Maria, and Dr. Nanjo. Then on either side of me were George Aniki and Jessica. This is everyone, the true number of people on this island at the moment. Well, all of us are Ushimiyas. Please don't feel obligated to call us by our family name. I'm George. And I'm Badler. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much, George-san, Badler-san. I'd be pleased if you'd call me Erika. Nice to meet you, Erika-san. It was decided that Erika would be welcomed like a guest, and allowed to borrow the bedroom next to the cousin's room on the second floor of the guest house. In front of all the relatives, she had seemed dignified and a bit stiff. However, as she talked with George and Jessica, her expression began to soften gradually. And so, the detective, Furuto Erika, was placed on the game board. I'm surprised Jessica's old clothes suit her so well. Kumasawa-san made the decision on her own to use Milady's old clothes. Please forgive her. The clothes Erika wore were Jessica's old formal attire. Though the guest possessed a dignity that would put most adults to shame, her body was still physically similar to a middle schooler's. Jessica's old clothes fit her perfectly. Not to worry, they match this guest perfectly. If she likes them, we might even let her keep them as a sign of friendship. Certainly. Thank you very much. Have you contacted the police and her family? Yes. They seem to have been quite distressed. By the way, our guest really was involved in an accident, right? She herself said she fell from a boat as it was returning to port. Is there anything to back up that claim? I checked with the Coast Guard. It seems she fell from the rear of a pleasure boat unnoticed by the others on board. We don't know the exact location she fell from, but it was probably somewhere near this island. It was foolish to play on a boat with such bad weather forecast. However, is it really conceivable she nearly drowned in the nearby waters and drifted to this island? It is not impossible. Tales of drifters washing ashore exist in several of the islands across this area. I believe it likely an accident occurred. We're in the middle of a typhoon. It would not be possible to land a boat anywhere on this island. Genji had already considered what she now suspected. Natsui probably suspected that this mysterious guest, who had arrived during the already high-stress family conference, might be the agent of some conspiracy. So Genji had already checked to make sure the accident was real, and that Furuto Erika was a real name, and that there was nothing suspicious going on. I understand. My husband has ordered she be politely entertained. Make sure there are no blunders. However, you do understand, don't you? Yes. I won't let her anywhere near the family conference. After dinner, I will see she retires to the guest house. Make sure they don't start trying to force us to let her meet father or something like that. Of course. I will keep that in mind. Oh, Furuto Erika, was it? It's rare for guests to come here for Rokonjima. Doesn't this look like it'll be interesting? She's probably Lady Byrne Castell's piece. Though she will follow the rules of humans, the player is a witch. We mustn't underestimate her. Huh, there's no problem. Even if she were Lady Byrne Castell herself, since she's human, she's no match for us. After all, we have Gop with us. Humans certainly cannot win against Gop. Thanks. Still, it's not a good idea to overestimate yourself. The definition of a witch doesn't only imply the ability to use magic. True. A joker in the eye of a typhoon. That is what a witch is. Huh. I'm the only one who gets to call herself a witch on this Rokonjima. Only I, the Golden Witch, an endless witch, Beatrice. Let's see how good Lady Burncastell's next piece after Ange is. I intend to watch very closely. So things are already interesting now. We can see here on the human side of the pause menu, Eric has been added. Fell from the pleasure boat Eternal Maid 2 mid-cruise in the waters near Rokujima. On October 4th, 1986, she drifted to Rokujima and the Ushime family welcomed her as a guest. She managed to drift to the island unharmed thanks to several miracles, including the fact that she was wearing a life jacket. And she is the piece of Burncastel, the Witch of Miracles. Everyone else is more or less the same. I don't know if it says something different for Natsui. It's kind of about the same. Then here, of course, we have the magical people. So Lambda Delta is now the Game Master. This is still the Seven Sisters of Purgatory. We have Gop, of course. We are already introduced to Ronov, Virgilia, and we have, like, there's the Beatrice that's comatose with Badler in the meta world, and then there's the Beatrice who's on the game board as well. We have Burncastel, and we also have Erica here, Burncastel's double and servant, also a piece who has manifested in the human world. Because she is human, she cannot use magic and the like. However, she can appeal to Burncastel on a higher level plane to obtain miracles and various authorities she can use. So it would probably be no exaggeration to call her a human capable of wielding the power of a witch. Through Burncastel, she has been given the detective's authority while on the game board. Therefore, even though she is an outsider to the Ushime family, she possesses the right to demand full attention from everyone when speaking, the right to advance proceedings, the right to investigate the crime scene before the police arrive, and many other special abilities. She gets pleasure from the process of solving riddles, but her greatest joy comes from using that victory to sneer at others. So even though Erica is Burncastel's self-insert, she is her own character. She is not Burncastel herself. She is merely Burncastel's furniture, I guess you could say. And they're introducing these rules of mystery novels with Nox's commandments and the use of the detective. So Furuto Erica is the detective, which gives her abilities given the genre of mystery. So that's going to be introduced as well as we go. We're going to save. So that's a good place to end for today. We can already see the Answers arc is already off to a different type of start. This episode 5 still had some exposition at the beginning, although I don't think episodes 6 and 7 have as much exposition because they've kind of set everything up now. So now we're going to see Erica around. They've shown us Natsuhi and Kraus scheming to keep Kinzo's illusion as well, and we've also seen how the world is in the meta world with Badler, Comatose Beatrice, and Lambda Delta and Burncastel now doing as they please. So it's already off to a very interesting start. I hope you guys are interested. Also, we also have the man on the phone, who's a new character and we don't know anything about, which also adds another layer of mystery to it. Thank you so much for the stretch, Kieran. Yes, I should sit up straight, and so should you as well. I really needed that. Yeah, thanks for coming. I'm glad you enjoyed listening to me narrate. So we'll pick this up. We'll keep doing Umineko on Saturdays at the same time, unless something happens. Tomorrow I'll post my schedule for the week. I haven't decided when I'm streaming the next week because I'm trying to juggle a few things, so we will see. I'm not sure if I'll stream tomorrow. I might just take a break, but we'll see. Let's have a look at Twitch and see if anyone is streaming. And of course, the VODs for this episode will be up later. I'll usually wait until I finish all of episode 5 before I post the VODs for episode 5 so they could all be together on my YouTube channel at once. In the meantime, my VODs for the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog will be up as well as we speak, so that'll be interesting if you want to check those out if you missed it. Okay. let's go check out... My acquaintance Jack is having a birthday stream. He's an April Fool's baby, it seems, so we're gonna drop in on him. And look, he's playing Mario Party, how fitting. Stick around for a raid, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.